So good morning, everybody. It's now 9:30, so we're gonna start this meeting. I'm gonna do a quick roll call. I already saw and signed up a few of the people that I know are already here. Hold on, let me open the document.
Marco, don't forget to rename yourself, please.
Oh, I should not be called meeting start at 9:30. Thank you for
No, I
reminding.
don't think so.
All right, thank you for reminding me, Lourdes. Let me open the document. So District 1 is here. This is me. Is Leonard here already? No, I don't see him yet. I know Jimmy is here. How are you doing, Jimmy? Is District 4 Rashida here?
I'm good, Marco.
Cool.
No, Rashida's not here.
Rashida's not here yet.
No.
District 5, Jacqueline is here already.
Good morning. Yes, I saw, yes.
Hi, Jacqueline. How are you doing? District 6, Orchidea?
No.
No, I don't think
Yeah.
yet. District 7, Danielle? Not yet.
I'm
Lourdes?
okay.
8 is here.
Yeah, I saw you. Dolita, District 9?
Not
Not
yet.
Richard from District 10, I don't think is here yet.
Oh, Marco, District 2 is here.
Oh, hey, Leonard,
Just
how
so
you
you
doing?
Sorry.
know, come on, Leonard.
Yeah,
Thank you.
don't
Hi,
worry.
well, hello, everyone. Thanks.
Miriam, District 11, not yet.
Not yet.
Doris, District 12, not yet.
5 is here.
Who's here?
5 is here.
Oh, yeah. 5, we got Jacqueline. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we got her. District 12, Doris. District 13, Celia. 14, Ariana. 15, Katea.
Good morning.
Hey, how you
Morning.
doing?
We
District 16, Janice. District 17, Veronica. District 18, Abby. 19, Sherry. 20, Janine. 21, Randy. I know I saw you. How are you doing, Randy?
Good morning, Marco. Good morning, everyone.
22, Kamoy. I also saw you. So I
It's
think
not
you're-
Kamoy. It's
Oh.
it's the president. It's Sabina.
Oh, hi, Sabina. How are you doing?
How are you?
Tanya from 23. Not sure if she's here yet. Mattia, you know, I saw you before. Is Francis 25 here? Not yet. Cecilia 26. Not yet. Mahalia 27.
It's Maribel for
Right.
27.
Okay. Jessica. Is Jessica here?
yes, she's here.
Okay, good.
28 is here.
Is Cherie here? 29?
No, I don't see her
Not
yet.
yet.
Not yet. I saw Alisa, 30. How are you doing, Alisa? 31, Edwina. Not, I don't think she's here yet. And Jessie from 32, I didn't see yet. I know I saw Shavian on Queens High School.
Yes, Chevian's here. Thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm good,
Marta?
Marco. Thank you.
Sure. Is Marta here already? Manhattan High
Yes.
School?
Morning,
she is.
everybody. I'm here.
She's here.
Hey, Marta, are you in charge of monitoring the chat on YouTube?
Happy to do. Oh, on YouTube? No.
And
I mean,
self
I
as
can.
well.
I can be if you'd like me to.
Yeah, please.
YouTube, will do.
Thanks. Stacy Ann from Bronx High School. I don't think she's here. Damara, Brooklyn High School. I don't see her. And Aaron, I don't see him yet. And Maria, our parliamentarian, is here. Anyway, I'm gonna update this thing as people.
Marco, please add.
Marco?
There you go, Celia. Go ahead.
Good morning. Good morning, Celia. How are you doing? All right, let's get the meeting actually started. Liz, can you
Yes.
take the floor and introduce? Oh, actually, Jimmy, you
13, okay.
want to introduce our first presenters?
Okay.
I'm still not seeing Stephen O'Brien, who's presenting first
He's
before.
he's on.
Oh, here he is.
on.
I
Yep.
see you. All right.
Okay.
Hi, Stephen.
Okay.
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 Go
Good
ahead.
morning, Stephen. Good morning, Liz.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Okay, Liz, why don't you just
Morning.
take the floor or Stephen, whoever needs to go
Yeah,
first.
Stephen's going to
and
kick us
introduce
off.
yourself.
So-
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Go ahead, Stephen. Why don't you kick
Go
us
ahead,
off?
Marie.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I know time is limited, and I'm very happy to be here this morning. Thank you for the invitation. And we are very concerned with making sure that we have a smooth opening from a food service perspective. So just very quickly, my name's Stephen O'Brien. I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships and Policy. We work with all of our partners that are out on the front lines, including Community Food Advocates and the Parent Coalition. And we also—
Is he talking?
Yes.
Or-
Yeah, Jimmy, you
Yes,
might
Jimmy.
you'll not hear him.
Jimmy, Stephen is talking right now. Yes, yes. Go ahead, sir.
Sure. And so we work with over 50 partners, both internally and externally, and Community Food Advocates and the Parent Caucus are a very important part of this partnership. We work with other city agencies. We work with agencies at the state level, at the federal level, national level, the Urban School Food Alliance, etc. And I've had 29 years of experience with the Office of Food and Nutrition Services, started as a manager in the field, have a culinary arts degree, food service management degree, and a master's in public administration, because about halfway through my career, I saw a lot that needed to change and wanted to be an agent of change at the administrative level, and went back to school about halfway through in order to start making some policy changes along the way. So I'm very committed to the work. I've worked in all 32 districts and continue to be on the front line at least once a week to make sure that I'm connected to the service and the types of programs that we're offering, and doing our best with our partners to continuously improve. So very briefly, I think the focus of today's conversation is really about what to expect for the reopening of schools and the food service program that's going to take place, and what's continuing and what's not continuing, and how are things changing. So if it's okay, I'll jump right in. There'll be a lot of information. I don't mind if you wanted to record or take notes, so please feel free to do so.
Yeah, just FYI, and for everybody, this meeting is actually streaming live on YouTube,
Okay.
and the recording will remain there available.
Okay, great.
And just let me know if you need to share the screen with something. Otherwise, just go ahead and just.
No, we're just going to have a quick conversation,
Okay.
and if there's any questions, maybe there'll be a few minutes to answer some.
That's great. That's great. Thank you.
And the team knows how to get in touch with me, so if you think of something after the presentation, don't hesitate to reach out to Liz and team, and we'll get the clarifications necessary. So we're in transition right now. We're in the process of phasing in the reopening, and we have been, our frontline staff, the 8,000 employees that work in the kitchens, have been just amazing. They've shown up to work since day one on March 16th to serve the community food. And as we all know, food is essential in people's stability and people's welfare. And we take that job very seriously, especially our frontline employees who are very connected to the communities they serve. Many of them come from the communities they serve, and they know their students by first name, and they really take heart in what they're doing. And so first, I want to thank all of the people on the front line who are doing the job of serving the meals. We had opened all of our schools the first day on March 16th and served in all 1,200 sites that have kitchens. We started to serve meals to the community, adults and families and students, anyone that needed food, we were there to provide food. About 2 weeks later, we condensed the sites into about 430 sites that were similar to how a summer program would run, where we'd have neighborhood schools open and available as food hubs. Those food hubs are continuing through tomorrow. So those 420 sites are continuing to serve the community through tomorrow. And then as of next week, we'll be phasing in the new type of service. So I'll keep the adult meals to the side, and we'll talk about that separately. Let's talk about the school food program and the way we're getting food to students first. And so to the students, starting on Tuesday after the holiday, the schools that are opening, so as we're opening the K-8 sites, and then a few days later as we open the high school sites, there'll be two types of service that's occurring. There'll be in the building service that's happening for the 30% or so of the students who are coming in for in-classroom education. As we know now, the numbers are getting closer to 50-50. 50% of the 50 or 60% of the students are asking for remote learning 100%, and about 40% are asking for in the building face-to-face blended learning. So when those students are in the building, they're coming to the building for instruction. We are going to provide a grab-and-go breakfast as they're entering the building, so that they can take that to the classroom and eat it in the classroom. And we are going to be serving lunch. The preferred model for lunch service is that we have a grab-and-go lunch station randomly throughout the building. So it could be on each floor, it could be in two different wings, but the idea is there's points of distribution for the grab-and-go lunch to be picked up either by the teacher, the para, a designated student that would come to that service location, not the regular serving line, a designated station throughout the building, that they can pick up the meals for their classroom. So if there's 13 students in the classroom and 10 want lunch, that designated person would pick up the 10 meals, bring it into the classroom, and then they would eat their lunch during instruction. So every school, as you can imagine, has different schedules and different periods. So we are accommodating whatever the principal decides is the service time for lunch. And we will have those grab-and-go stations stocked and ready to serve a grab-and-go lunch when those students are ready for it in the classrooms. One thing that comes up is, this is very different from eating in a restaurant. I just want to flag that if you think about eating in a restaurant today, you're eating outside, you're eating in open air, and you are close to your friends or your family that you're eating with. You're sitting at the table with your mask off. This is different. They're still socially distanced in the classroom. They're still 6 feet apart at a minimum at their desks. So when they get their meal, they're eating it 6 feet apart, and they're only taking their masks off while they're consuming the food. We've asked teachers and instructors to obviously keep conversation to a minimum. And they're doing what they need to do to get through those 20 or 30 minutes of eating the meal and then wrapping that up and putting their mask back on. But they're socially distanced and they're in a safe space as they're eating their lunch. It's a short period of time and separated apart. And again, health experts have, reviewed this process and approved this process and do recognize that it's different from eating in a restaurant or other indoor settings that may start to open up in the next coming weeks. So that's in the building service. At the same time, our kitchens are preparing the same menu, the same grab-and-go menu is being offered for students who are on remote learning. So as buildings open up for their blended learning, there will be a grab-and-go station in every one of the schools that have a kitchen. So in the basically 12 to 1,400 sites, there'll be a grab-and-go station that students that are on remote learning can pick up their meals from that grab-and-go station between 9 and 12. So part of that is because we're serving breakfast to the students in the building first, then we're doing the grab and go from 9 to 12, and typically lunch service happens in school buildings between 10:30 and 1. So we're trying to make sure that all of this service is somewhat staggered. The 9 to 12 grab and go station is available at a designated doorway. They're not coming into the building, and students can pick up their meal, 2 meals at a time. They can pick up breakfast and lunch. And depending on what time they pick up, if they pick up at 11 o'clock, they can take breakfast and lunch and they can eat their lunch and save the breakfast for the next day. Or they could pick up at 9 a.m. and eat their breakfast first and save their lunch. So they can pick up the 2 meals at a time, between 9 and 12. It is student meal service. So this meal service is for students only. It's not an adult meal service like we've been doing since the pandemic started. This is student meal service. But adults can pick up on behalf of their families, or if they're a guardian, picking up on behalf of their children that are in school during the week. So again, it's grab and go lunch service, 9 to 12. Breakfast and lunch can be picked up by students. If a student can't make it, a designated adult can pick up, but they need to pick up on behalf of the students. They're not doing the pandemic service for adults. Now, I should put a caveat. We're not going to get into checking names, checking people, asking them to identify themselves. There's none of that. We'll serve anyone that comes to our serving lines. But the purpose of this type of model moving into the regular school year is that we are providing service to students primarily. So that's the student meal service that's occurring in the building and the grab and go meal service for virtual learners Monday through Friday during the week. Separate from that, we are doing, the mayor's office has asked for school food to continue to provide food security to many communities that need it. So the mayor's office identified 200 sites. These are schools, 200 sites where our program will provide food to adults in the community. So there's 200 listed sites. I believe they're going on the website tomorrow. So you'll see the 200 sites. They're in every geographic district. And the 200 sites are meant to serve adult meals between 3 and 5 p.m. So again, we don't want the community to come and get their meals at the same time as we're providing the virtual learners and the students with their meals. So we're trying to keep the public a little separated, but still make sure that we're providing food security to the communities that need it the most. So in those adult sites, those 200 adult sites from 3 to 5 p.m., adults will be able to come and pick up meals for themselves and their family. Any questions on the service model? And then I'm going to get into a little bit about the menu, and then just a final ask that I have for all of you. But I could see from some people's faces that there might be some questions about the actual service model.
This is Liz. I actually have a question, Stephen. I was under the impression that during the 9 to 12 hours that food would be available for children and anyone in their household.
Yeah, I think we have to be cautious of the way we're publicly saying that. So it's, again, we are going to provide service to anyone that needs service, but the primary focus of that 9 to 12 service is really for the virtual learners. Again, we're not going to refuse anyone a meal, and that is the purpose of the 200 adult sites, but you're absolutely correct. We will feed anyone that is hungry.
Thank you.
Yes. Thanks for clarifying, Liz. And I hope I clarified and answered the question.
So you're opening for questions, right? Okay, so anybody raise your hands and I'm
just checking the chat. It doesn't look like there's any questions there.
But there is also the chat. There is actually Martha checked in the chat on YouTube as well. So maybe she's going to bring in some questions from YouTube.
Again, just questions. Yeah, sure. Just questions about the service model, and then I'll talk about the menu a little bit more.
There is none.
It's Jessica has a question.
Hi, Jessica. Good morning.
Hi. You are able to go to any local school. It does not have to be your assigned school to pick up food, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Thank you for bringing that up. We fought very hard, both New York City and the Urban School Food Alliance, to get waivers from the USDA, and the waivers take us through allowing for the meal service to be in non-enrolled sites. So we're basically operating like a summer meals program. As long as you're a student, you can come and get your meal, and we want to make it as easy as possible for everyone. We're not asking parents to register. We're not asking them, to do anything formal.
Great, thank you.
Stephen, can you clarify the summer meals model so that people understand? I understand the focus is on students, but just so people leave here knowing that it's children through they're 19 till they're 19.
So anyone that's 18 years old and younger can receive a meal, no questions asked, breakfast and lunch. And that's what we do during the summer meals program. During this emergency, many school districts and organizations pushed for the United States Department of Agriculture to allow the summer meal service model and program rules to be in place for the rest of this school year, because there's so many unknowns. We didn't want to have to require students to go to their enrolled site to pick up meals. We didn't want to require students to present an ID to get their meal.
Right.
We didn't want them to have rosters where we'd have to cross-check their names. This is a very emotionally trying time for families and the community, and we felt, and many districts felt, it needs to be as easy as possible for students to get their food. So successfully at the 11th hour, in fact, some school districts in the South started their regular school year with all of these measures where they had to track the students and this and that. But thankfully we didn't start yet. And we're able to do the summer meals model at the least through December 31st for the first half of the year. And we're pushing for the United States Department of Agriculture to continue the summer meals model through the end of the year. And I did see yesterday that there's some legislation that's moving forward. So we're pushing hard for it to be the whole year, because it's just the easiest way to get food to families than for us to have to go through all of this regular review.
Great. We have Lourdes and then Martha asking for a question.
And again, I just want to stress that any child can go to their nearest school to pick up a meal. They do not have to go to if they're a high school student, they don't have to go to a high school. It's really meant to be that they go to the nearest school to where they live so that they can get a meal very easily and conveniently.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Go, Lourdes.
Yes, you did mention that there will be adult sites. So when let's say, I'm gonna say an example, right? I'm gonna go pick up for my child who's in a high school, but at the same time, I'm gonna pick up for the family. At least in the summer, that's how it was. You know, at the same time that I pick up for my child, I also pick up for myself and my husband. Let's say, right? That's an example. So that's not gonna happen now because there's adult sites specifically set up for the adults. And where would the sites be? And would they be more than one in each borough?
Yeah, so there's many sites in each borough. The list will be published on the website, and I'm sure Liz will share that once we have it public. It's almost ready. I just don't think it's been posted yet, but it will be. The goal is for adults and families to get their meal from those sites, from those adult sites, from 3 to 5 p.m. But as I said before, if you're coming for your students' meals and you ask for additional meals, we're not going to refuse you. That's the way that we've been instructing our frontline staff. So again, if you know, monitors came in from the state and other people were there standing next to us and looking at the program, they would be saying that we're supposed to be serving only students during the instructional day, both in the building and between 9 and 12. But as we go forward with this model and as we get more comfortable, we expect that we're going to be serving the adults, and we're prepared to serve the adults. So, you know, if you needed to pick up meals for your family at the same time, you should not have a problem.
So Stephen, it should be similar, that it's the way it's accounted for, in that they'll ask how many children, how many adult meals, so that
Yes, we will separate the numbers.
Thank you for clarifying that for everyone here. Thank you.
Sure. No, that was a very good question. The questions have been great. If it's okay, because time is limited, I'm going to move on, and then we'll see.
Actually, there are two people to ask questions. Let's have them ask the question, and then you go on. Sorry, Stephen.
No worries. No
go
problem.
ahead, Martha.
Okay, I just wanted to pass a couple of questions along from people watching on YouTube. Can you just quickly repeat the adult schedule, the pickup times for the adult meals?
Yes, adult meals will be available at 200 designated locations between the hours of 3 and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday.
Okay, and then another question was, on election day and other school holidays, will there be food service?
So this coming holiday, the first holiday that we have is this Monday, and there is not meal service at all schools. It is a regular school calendar, so we're following the school calendar. The 200 adult meal sites will begin service on Monday.
Okay, and one more comment, I guess. They wanted to make sure that adults will know. Are we broadcasting it? Are we getting the word out that people will
Our
hear
communications office is trying to get the word out the best they can, and that's part of the reason why we're on this call today, is to try to help clarify that.
Right. Thank you. Sabine, I saw you were before you raised your hand, but looks like you
Yes,
lowered
I
it.
did have a question. I was going to wait, but the question was, typically we have a set number of breakfasts and lunches that the school orders based on the numbers that they anticipate eating. So is there a cap, or how would we know to anticipate kids coming in that might not necessarily be from our school? So is there like a greater number being distributed to the schools for the grab and goes?
So first of all, the kitchens are preparing the meals on site. So we have, I would say safely, that we've ordered plenty of food to start. We certainly have rounded up and made sure that we were anticipating a larger participation than I think we expect. But we certainly made sure there was plenty of food ordered. At this point, what will happen is the first few days might be a little bit bumpy, in the sense that we might have to run back to the kitchen, make a few extra meals. There could be some situations like that because we're such a big system and there's 1,400 sites that are going to be serving food. But generally speaking, plenty of food has been ordered. We will have plenty of food to prepare. We will level out, I would say, after the first rotation, the first full week of actually providing service to in-school and the neighborhood, we'll start to understand what the participation looks like more consistently. but we're ready. Our staff is ready. Our food is in the schools. We should not be running out of food. We will have plenty of food available to start. I'm not anticipating there being any problems with sort of unknown participation from the neighborhood as we get started. We're expecting there to be that situation, and we'll be ready to serve as best we can throughout that first week. And then as time goes on, we'll certainly understand what the regular participation is. Mati, I think you had a question, and then if it's okay, I'd like to move on to the menu because I know we only have a couple minutes left.
Yes, I did.
Yes, Stephen.
My question is, what happens to all the food, let's just say for the remote learners, that doesn't get picked up? Is that all discarded, or is that being
No, a lot of our food is packaged, so it would be served the next day, just as you would in your home. There's nothing wrong with it. We're doing everything that we need to do to keep the temperature correct and safe so that we don't waste food. You know, the first couple weeks will be challenging because, as we said, we don't know exactly what the numbers will look like. But we always do try to utilize our leftovers the next day.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Just a couple quick highlights on the menu. So we continue to focus on local food. So we're, serving local milk and local yogurt and local apples and all of those great things that come from New York State. We want to help our neighbors continue to be employed, which is important. So we're doing everything we can to continue to serve local New York products. We are continuing with the Vegetarian Mondays and the Meatless Monday movement that came out from the city. So every Monday throughout the city, you'll see vegetarian choices on the menus. We're happy that, that with this model, we're not allowed to do self-service salad bars, and many of our students really enjoy having the ability to have salads. So on Tuesdays is a salad entree day, and I will say that during the Meal Hub service, salads are one of the most popular meals. So we decided on Tuesdays, it'll be a salad Tuesdays, and we proudly serve antibiotic-free chicken in all of our schools, in all of our menus, but on Thursdays, we're highlighting antibiotic-free chicken wraps. So along with assorted sandwiches, along with vegetarian hummus and cold choices, we have these other initiatives that we're continuing to maintain so that we can maintain the quality. I'll also say that we meet the USDA guidelines. We haven't exercised the waivers to reduce our whole grains, to reduce the colors of the vegetables. We've continued to maintain all of those standards in New York City throughout the pandemic service. So our meals are very nutritious and calorie conscious. They have calorie ceilings, etc. So the nutrients in our cold grab and go menu are exactly the same as our regular hot menu would be. And the last thing I'll say is I just wish, if you could, please advocate to support your community members. Your kitchen staff is from the community. And the best way that you can advocate for them is for you to encourage students to eat the meals and pick up the meals. We need your support on a frontline and grassroots effort to encourage communities and families to please take advantage of the program. Please come and pick up your grab and go meals, and please continue to participate in the program. Many of you are very aware that students have a hard time sometimes, especially high school students and middle school students, coming down 5 flights of stairs to go to the cafeteria on the first floor. Imagine now them coming out of the house, going 2 blocks away or a block away to get their meal and coming back. So we're hoping that participation will stay strong so that we can continue to move forward with this process. We know there's going to be challenges. There'll be challenges around packaging. There'll be challenges about waste. There'll be challenges about incorporating more hot food choices as we go forward. We know that these things are concerns, but to help us get started, we just need to have everyone pull together to make sure people understand where they can pick up their meal and that meals are available and we want them to participate. As we go forward, we'll continue to have calls like this where we'll continue to learn and continue to try to improve the service that we're providing. But initially, we're asking for everyone's support to make sure we have a smooth start.
Great.
One point, I just have one point that it was my understanding that it was going to be 3 meals served, a breakfast and 2 lunches for the takeout. Is that
I'd
correct?
have to get back to you. Right now, I know there's definite for the breakfast and lunch. The supper meal and or the third meal, last I heard, which was 2 days ago, were that things were still under review.
Got it.
Okay. There is an interesting question that coming from the chat here, which is asking if there are flyer for community members to share.
Thank you for asking. The Chancellor's office is in the process, along with the Family and Engagement Office, FACE, of putting out a 2020 family guide. So a 2020 family guide, there's 2 pages in there about the food service program, and you could pull those 2 pages to create a flyer if you'd like. That should be up on the website the beginning of next week, the Department of Education website, probably under family engagement.
Okay, maybe just once it's live, shoot us an email so that we can add it to the materials of this. Okay, great.
Definitely.
Very good point.
And we have a 1-pager that we sent
Mhm.
out, and so please feel free to circulate that.
Okay, great.
I know time is tight, but Liz, if there's additional questions, please don't hesitate from the parent caucus and others. Please don't hesitate to Monique and everyone. Thank you so much for your time. But if there's questions, please send them my way. And if you need clarifications for any communication, please reach out to Chris or myself so that we can make sure that we get as clear as possible. I hope today's presentation
So
was
Stephen,
helpful.
you have to go, right? But
Yes,
only
he
at
does.
10:15?
Yes, I think there's an agenda issue that I need to wrap up in order for other presenters to be on time.
No. We are actually fine with you for another 15 minutes if you want. But I know that you also had other schedules right after.
Yeah,
He does.
I can also.
He does, and Liz is also there to do the second part of the.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to keep you here, but we have 15 more minutes if you need to.
I do have another meeting, but I can take, I have 4 minutes if that helps. And then, as we said, Liz can certainly follow up with me and Monique and the team.
Great. Okay,
Any
good.
other
Then let's use those 5 minutes. Marta, you say there are questions. You have questions.
Oh, yes, there were some concerns on YouTube that older students in D75, particularly where students are over 20 years old, that they won't be turned away.
They will not be turned away if they're an enrolled student. I don't anticipate any problems, especially with the special ed population. They're going to be going to their school or a nearby school for their meals, and many of the special ed students are in session, going to in-classroom service. So we will continue to provide service, and if there's any concerns, make sure you escalate them. We'll help to resolve and make sure that those families have meals.
All right, and just one other sort of a concern, because you did say that if someone came later on in the day and picked up breakfast and lunch, that they could hold breakfast till the next day. Is that okay in terms of food safety? And
as long as they put it in a refrigerator, yes. If they don't have access to a refrigerator, then that would be discouraged. They should come the next morning and get the breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. I guess, thank you, Stephen. I think
there's no mail.
Thank you, Stephen. And then we're gonna move on to Liz and it looks like there are no more
Thanks,
questions.
Stephen.
Great.
Thank you very
everybody
much.
for all your
Have a
help and
good one.
support, and have a great day and enjoy the weekend that's coming up.
Take care.
Yeah.
Okay, Liz.
Okay.
Take it over.
Sure. I'm Liz Ackles with Community Food Advocates. And I just want to take a minute to emphasize some key points. So after this Friday, as Stephen mentioned, there are 440 sites. It's basically the grab and go, the to-go meals for students and their household members are going to increase to almost every school building. It won't be every school building. This is a really important point. There are 1,400 school buildings, roughly. Even if it's to 1,200 of the school buildings, that's still triple what the numbers are now. So access should greatly increase. I can say I'm not the Office of Food and Nutrition Services, that children and adults, that can get meals at the hub sites between 9 and 12. The 3 to 5 hours are primarily for adult-only households, as for lack of a better term. So I just want to be clear about that. We will get the list from School Food, and we'll put that on our website. We'll have, along with DOE, we'll have searchable map for what the sites are. But it's very important to know that there's going to be much more reach than currently exists in terms of the ability for children and their household members to access the meals. I guess I was definitely under the impression that it was 3 meals, and so that will need to clarify. And, you know, just a reminder, there's no identification, documentation, anything given the federal waivers. So that's a really important point for many people that have concerns about, a child does not need to be registered in a school. And so I just want to be clear on that for people who are hesitant to out of immigration concerns or other concerns to do that. I also one thing that I really hope the group will take away is that although the meals are there, you know, it's going to be said for when children are remote, but if the household has food needs, even when the child is in school, when they get home, or other household members have food needs on days that the child is in school, not just when they're remote, then meals can be picked up. I think that's a really important point, and it's in our one pager, and I really want to emphasize that because I don't want families thinking that they can't access the meals if their children are in school. That's going to be a really critical piece. So I think, you know, that is really, those are, I think, the key points that I just want to emphasize. And with the Lunch for Learning Parent Caucus and our other members, and many CPAC members are core members of the Lunch for Learning campaign, and we call on other people who are on the call. We have a far reach, and one of the things we've been able to do since the pandemic hit is gather information from particular sites. We like things verified, you know, as best we can, and system-wide things, that challenges that are happening that we bring to the Office of Food and Nutrition Services. They have been very responsive, and just want to encourage folks to reach out to us if things are happening at particular sites that we should know, knowing that this is going to be a learning process going forward.
Cool. You want to go for question, Liz?
Yeah, I'm happy to.
All right, guys, raise your hands, or Martha bring in question from, or Martha, you can also ask your own questions, by the way.
Oh, you know I will, if I have any. But we do have a question from YouTube. Natalie says, will there be a menu for parents with kids that can't eat certain foods? The kids who are doing blended learning. So how do we handle, you know, special needs? Thank you.
Yeah, so I know that to date, there have been the biggest exceptions, that the biggest accommodations that I know of is that there are non-peanut alternatives, like there's sun butter that I think is from sunflower butter. That's one thing. There have been milk alternatives. I'm just thinking of some of the big things, and that's a thing. If there are schools where that's not happening and there are needs, please raise that and we'll bring it to school food. The other thing is that there are halal and kosher meals. There have been sites since the beginning and some halal options available throughout the entire city. And so for that will continue. And there, I believe in the sites that have a more stepped up halal and kosher programs, those will be in effect as the schools meal service starts.
Cool.
Great.
Questions?
Okay, and we do have the one pager. On the one pager that I circulated, there is, it says three meals per person per day. I'll clarify that. But
Liz, was that an attachment to some email you exchanged also with me, or?
I think so. I think, Marco, if not, right, Marie?
Yes, we
Okay.
have it. You
Yeah,
have it.
okay, great. I just want to make sure to put it as part of the documents in the of this meeting.
And please send it around, because what we can say and emphasize sometimes is different from what the Office of Food and Nutrition Service can say and emphasize. So I'm just that's and the good news is that a really important point is that we're really glad that the city is strongly committed to making sure adults have meals, both households with children and households without children, because that is a critical component. So just to say that I see the remote learners. Right now, the pickup times for remote learners or families that need food, have additional food needs, even when their children are in school, is from 9 to 12. So they're trying at this point to do it not when students are coming in or when they're leaving school, to keep the flow even.
Makes sense.
There may be challenges with that, and we do want to hear like what the challenges are.
Marta, go ahead.
Okay, quick question from YouTube, and my apologies to the listener. I missed her question when the chat moved quickly. So what does someone do? Who do they contact if they have a problem or they need to resolve something? They would like to escalate it. Perhaps they've not been able to resolve it at the school level. What is the chain of, complaint?
Yeah, so it would be the school level or the school food manager who oversees several schools. We are also, we are certainly not in the official chain of command. So just to be clear about that, but we community food advocates in the Lunch for Learning campaign have a strong relationship with Stephen and Chris Tricarico, who heads up school food. So we have been able to get issues resolved once they've been raised, both individual sites and also things that need to be addressed across the board. So Marco, Jimmy and Marie, if please feel free to share our contact information.
Cool.
Yes, definitely will.
Jessica has questions.
Let me unmute myself. Hi, Liz. Nice to see you.
Hi, Jessica.
In regards to the pickup options, do you happen to know how the entrances will be marked for when you go to pick up the food?
I don't yet know that, and that's always a challenge. I think each school, is going to have its own arrangement, and so, but they'll probably be right inside the door, and making sure the buildings are marked well and the entrances are marked well, we know is an ongoing challenge. There are some nice signs that they came up with a few months ago, but that's the kind of thing that if there are specific school buildings, if you're talking to, everyone here has connections with their schools and even the school districts. If there are, trying to get that resolved, if it's not well marked, with the school food staff or school food manager, and if not, please let us know, because we're always trying to see, again, what's happening individually that could be resolved, and then also are there system-wide challenges that we can raise to OFNS to address across the board. Thanks, Marie. Okay. Anything else?
Marta, I guess might go for the last question.
Yep, I'm unmuted. I actually, it's a couple of things. So Gladys says, will live sessions for remote learning halt while meals are being distributed? And second kind of similar follow-up, families with young students need time to walk to the site and then eat. So schools have already requested that students not eat during instruction.
Yeah.
So can you
Yeah,
pick
no,
that
those
apart
are
for me?
two excellent points. And I don't know the answer to that question. And it is a bit of a structural challenge about the timing, because the students are to be learning at that time. So that's something that's been on our mind as well. So we will raise that. I don't have an answer for that. I mean, a lot of the implementation is very school specific. You know, what, you know, there's the system-wide thing, and then how schools are managing things is very school specific. I'm not sure if there's an across-the-board policy about how they're going to manage it, but that's an excellent point, and we will be paying attention to that.
Cool.
And do want to hear from folks.
Great. Thank you, Liz.
Sure, my pleasure, always. And I always thank CPAC for the discussion, the partnership, and I'm very much appreciated your
Same here.
collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Have
Thank
a good
you.
one.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Hello.
Bye-bye.
I see Adrian. Adrian, are you ready to go?
I'm ready. Good morning. Hey, Marco. How are you?
Hello. How are you doing?
Hi, good. Good morning, CPAC.
I hear you have good news for us.
Good morning.
Oh my goodness, I have good news. You know, some things are worth waiting for. I hope that's true of the guidance, because certainly you all, you know, have heard from me time and time again on this, but I'm excited. We have guidance.
Do you want to share the screen?
Yeah, can I do a few things, because I want to give you all, I've got a few updates and I just want you guys
Okay,
to
so maybe give the updates and then you share the screen.
I want to share my screen to show you guys a few things, just because parents need to know there's so much happening so quickly. And I'm certainly hearing from a lot of families, even elected officials, who are saying, DOE, you've really got to get this information out there more quickly, more widely to families. So I'm going to share with you all some resources. These resources are going to be in that end of week wrap up email, as well as the guidance, which is already online. But just at this point, I just want you guys to have access to information. So I'm going to quickly let me pull up the document so I can give you guys some info about what's happening, both with FACE and then DOE. Now I'll share screen. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
So one thing I wanted to share with you all is I'm super excited, super proud of this. FACE has developed an equity statement of sorts. It's our equity commitment. This is what's going to ground our work for the year. It's what we used in our strategic planning. And this is sort of the commitments, or what we're funneling all of our work through, because we're committed to equity. So just quickly, the first part is, you know, you guys can obviously read it. But it's our celebration and embracing of the diversity of all our families, our multi-generational, single parent, foster, blended, adoptive families, families with diverse ethnic, racial, cultural, religious, and language backgrounds, our families with differently abled students and family members, parents of all gender identities, and our LGBTQI+ parents, our immigrant and undocumented families, our families of all socioeconomic backgrounds. And we thought it was important that we really name the diversity that exists among our families, as much as we could think of all of the very diverse ways that our families are comprised. And to say that out loud, to include everyone, and then to say, we are committed to understanding the complexity of our communities through continued learning and partnership. We're committed to building supportive relationships and working collaboratively with our families. We're committed to supporting diversity and inclusion, including the removal of barriers that would limit access for all. We are committed to creating appropriate and differentiated opportunities to serve all of our families. We're committed to leading the culture shift in public education to uplift parent and community voice. And we are committed to ensuring that all families are involved and have an impact in decision-making. So just wanted to let you all know that this is the work that we are committed to doing. And as we started to develop our calendar of what workshops we're offering, what learning opportunities we're creating, what our partnership with other offices across the DOE looks like, this is the grounding principles that is underlying all of that work. So with that, I'm going to share with you next our just general plan for where we are headed so far. So this is sort of our rough breakout of what we're doing September through December. September, if you look on the events, you can kind of see we've got CEC public meetings, Chancellor town halls from September to December. And you can see we've got between 1 and 3 events per month that are going to be district events. But how I see this is I'm going to have in every end of week wrap up a link to these events. And obviously, even though it's a District 15 town hall, they're public events. We encourage everyone to come, and these are going to be forums where parents can ask questions of the chancellor. He's going to be directly interfacing with parents, and it's run by the local CECs.
Adrian, can you zoom in, because people are saying they are unable to see it. Great, okay, thank you.
There we go. Thank you for the feedback. I want people to see. I hope this is better. So we've got for September, parent voice and parent leadership structure trainings. We obviously are going to be doing a lot of virtual election trainings on the PA-PTA and SLT election guidance that I'm going to show you in a minute. And then, I don't know if y'all know this, but we have Watch Party Wednesdays. These actually happen every Wednesday. They are for our parent coordinators. They are professional development for parent coordinators, and they are a community building exercise. So our parent coordinators come together every week with FACE, and they do some sort of professional learning on a topic. Sometimes it's technology, because we want our parent coordinators to be able to field questions around, how do I use my iPad? How do I access Google Classroom or iLearn? And so FACE is really committed to making sure our parent coordinators are ready to go, as well as our FLCs who are also doing this work. But we're working with our FLCs to make sure that professional learning is happening. And then, as you can see, our meetings, we've got our CPAC in there. We've got our monthly CEC meetings. We've got our weekly check-in calls with our CECs, our weekly check-in calls with president's councils. That's happening every week, and it's just built into this calendar. And then for communications, we have built in our end of week wrap up, our election guidance, our school reopening guidance guide, our section of the mayor's management report. And as you go down, you can see all of the things that we are expecting to be able to produce. We want to do a family engagement toolkit for our parent coordinators this fall. It's already taking shape. And we will certainly add, if Marco, Jimmy, CPAC Exec Board, if you guys want to see it, where it is, we're happy to share that with you. But we're really trying to think, like 2 steps ahead and trying to plan in advance, even though it's hard to do that during this time because so much of what's happening is unfolding day to day. We're trying to think as much as possible in advance and plan for what we think is gonna be the future. So as you can see, we're going down here. I think most interesting to you all might be, we have A660 roles and responsibilities, PA-PTA trainings planned for November. Obviously, that's because we anticipate new boards coming in, potentially new exec officers coming into PA-PTAs. We want to make sure that folks know. And we are working, and this isn't reflected in this calendar, but we are working with the First Deputy Chancellor's Office on an SLT training. And I think in the past, the First Deputy Chancellor's Office has sort of split SLT training. So there's like this parent meeting, and then there's the staff side of things. We are trying to do them combined. So doing a full SLT training where everyone's on the same page and understands all of the roles and responsibilities of all the members. So
is this a calendar that can be made public eventually? Because people are asking to, I know from YouTube, people are asking to make it even bigger because they can't see it.
You know what? I will share this. I'm going to share it in the end of week wrap up because I think it's important that you all have a sense of like, what does FACE have in the, what's our vision for at least this fall getting us to December? And then there's going to be a more specific calendar that we're going to make available as well that actually has the dates of our trainings. What I have asked and what our staff has done for the last, couple of months is to build out a calendar of trainings from October to June so that you all will be able to see, oh, okay, in December, FACE has these trainings on these days with these links. And that has been the goal, and we are there, and I'm really excited about that. It took a lot of work, so kudos, hats off to all of the FACE staff, the liaisons who identified all of the trainings that they wanted to do. They worked with parent leaders to develop that, but that's in the works. All right.
Okay, so hold on a second, just 1 second. So this information will be shared through the end of week wrap-ups, correct?
Yes.
So if somebody is not part of that list, how can they if a parent is not currently receiving it, how can they join it?
Can they send their information to you, Marco, and you can collect a list of all of everyone who wants to be included in the wrap up, and then I will add it to our distribution list.
That's fine. That's great. Yeah, we can do that. Thank you. And I know Matty also was saying that she had a question, possibly about this. Sorry, interrupting you, but probably better to ask question about this right now and then move on to the next step.
I'm sorry, Marco.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is Maddie Gonzalez from D24, and I hate to stir it up so early in your presentation, but I'm going back to your face equity commitment, and you're committed to doing everything for a very diverse school population and their families, yet we're not seeing translation of documents or guidances in a timely fashion. They should be done at the same time. If you're really committed to actually providing equity across the board, then translation of documents need to be done at the same time. I know that the virtual elections, the guidance for PTAs, there's an unofficial Spanish one. So when will official documents be shared? We cannot expect our parent leaders whose dominant language is not English to be able to do the task that we want of them if they don't have the same information that all of us do and that we have access to. So I know I've been saying this months, maybe even over a year. And it's a big deal when I'm getting presentations to review and I still don't have information to be able to share with the rest of my district because it's not in any other language.
Maddie, you and I say the same thing. I want everything translated. I want it translated immediately, as quickly as possible. And the challenge is always that we have a small team at TNI that translates for every office in this, across the DOE, and it takes them a while. And I think I have a workaround because I've talked to Kleber, whose team is amazing. I don't want to take away from TNI because it's an amazing team of people that work incredibly hard and are very dedicated to language access, but they're a very small team to do the volume of work that they're doing. What I plan to do, and I've talked to Kleber about it, and it's the team at FACE, I know Shona is now focusing on communications, is to do our own contract. We're going to do a contract directly with a vendor that does interpretation and translation services so that we can sort of expand the capacity. So we'll be directly working with a vendor to translate everything out the gate. And I think that's going to get us where we need to go because then we won't be overwhelming TNI with unreasonable requests. And it's entirely unreasonable to go to TNI and say, I need something translated into all 9 languages tomorrow because they can't do that.
I'm going to be unrelenting until it happens.
It's going to happen. I have full faith that it's going to happen.
Well, until it does, I'm going to be unrelenting, just so you know.
But I do have the Spanish. I thought it was incredibly important, at least to have the Spanish translation of the guidance out. And so that is done. And
it's unofficial. So can we share the unofficial one?
Yes.
Or
okay. Yes, it's unofficial not because it's not a good translation, but because it didn't get like a blessing from TNI yet. TNI is going to do translation into all 9 languages. Their translations are like 100% accurate, meaning they spend a lot of time thinking of like if there's a difficult education weird word, thinking of what that actual word is in that language. And so their translations are like perfect. What we have and why I called it the unofficial translation is we've got Spanish speaking folks on FACE staff and they are really great and they believe in language access. And they were like, we'll take a crack at trying to make sure this is translated into Spanish. And so it's unofficial because only because of that, because it's not from TNI, it's from FACE. So, but that doesn't mean it's not good. It's still a good translation. Please get it out.
I'm still going to be here. You know that.
Okay. Thank you, Marty.
Yeah, thank you.
Martha, you had questions.
There's a lot of great comments on the chat. The first one, Sheena wanted to know, why is the ECC on there, Adrian? Because they're not a DOE entity, but a parent advocacy group. Question number 1.
On our calendar?
On that, I think on the document that we're just looking at. The second document, the table that you were looking at.
The table is just pretty much where we are thinking of making sure that there's engagement with parent leaders across the city. And we believe the ECC is a valuable place for us to plug in because there are parent leaders of not just CECs, but also there are folks that are other, PA, PTA, SLT members, I think that are also part of ECC. but we want to acknowledge that that's an important place for us to do engagement. And so we're building that in as an expectation for the office, that we make sure that the chancellor, because obviously FACE is responsible for ensuring that thinking through the chancellor's engagement with families, that the chancellor is there. So it's baked into our plan. We can certainly, if we think it's important to sort of think through what we put forth in the public document that we share, if there's a desire to like not have that there, but it is certainly something we're committed to doing, and we've been doing it, and we will continue to do that.
Okay, and thank you, Adrian. And Grace, who's been making lots of great comments and questions, she said, I like this question, will CPAC be involved in the PAPTA trainings? Good question, Grace.
I hope so. I hope so. I know everything has, because it took a little bit of time for FACE to get the guidance completely finalized and ready. There's been some, I don't know how much we've been working on with you all on like, let's plan now the training piece of it. But I certainly hope so, because I think the real life expertise that you all bring to bear in this conversation, and here's how it can work, will be incredibly helpful to our parents. So I think the answer there should be yes, but I hope you guys agree with me.
Well, I think you'll have a lot of very willing volunteers. Many people really want to get involved and
right. And we actually have already a reserve Thursday, next Thursday, we already have it reserved for election guidance. So we're gonna, at this way, it was reserved if the guidance were going to be released. Since the guidance have been released now, we can, we will in fact have a meeting specific on that subject.
And I just want to acknowledge, because I don't know if folks know this, but we worked incredibly close, and thank you, CPAC, thank you to the executive board and the members, worked incredibly close in developing the guidance. And thank you for the time that you guys invested with the staff to do that, because I know, it was a considerable amount of time, both with just the language and thinking through all of these, this is going to look different. This is virtual guidance, on virtual elections. Virtual elections and PAPTAs have never happened previously. And so it's taken some creative thinking, problem solving. And if it weren't for the parent leaders that are actually doing the work and the President's Council, CPAC, giving us feedback, giving us insight, it wouldn't be half as good as what it is. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that.
We have 2 more questions, then you can move on. Then you can also gonna be able to get more questions later. Randy and then Leonard.
Good morning, Adrian.
Hey, Randy.
Can you hear me? I have drilling going on in my home while remote learning is happening. Was this information released to the principals? Because although we're autonomous and we can, do our elections and without interference, we're actually going to need their help. So with school reopening and everything happening at the same time, and parent coordinators, working with parents, it's, we don't have much time to get this done. Was this information released to them so they're aware?
Brilliant question. We actually released the guidance yesterday for that reason, to FLCs, FSCs, and parent coordinators. So we focused mostly on FLCs, FSCs, and parent coordinators, and wanted to make sure that they were ready, because we knew that today, if we were releasing to parent leaders, that parent leaders were going to go directly to parent coordinators and FLCs and say, oh, great, let's do it tomorrow. So we wanted our staff to be ready and to read through the guidance and be able to support. So they have the guidance. I think the focus of our office is really going to be on parent coordinators and FLCs. And I say that because you are correct. Principals are trying to reopen schools. They started reopening schools this week. Our District 75 principals, our pre-K, 3K principals, and those are the principals that are also in our community school building. So they're really pre-K to 5. But with that, I think our focus is really going to be, we've got parent coordinators in most of our schools. We've got FLCs in all of our districts. Let's us step up to provide that support. And obviously the principals need to know and be aware. And if they want to help and be like fully knee deep in it, we are certainly happy to support principals in doing that. But we're focusing on parent coordinators and FLCs. So yes, and yes. Thank you, Randy.
Cool. Leonard.
Oh, hi, Adrian. I had a quick question. Could you pull up the calendar again? Because I was curious about what groups are covered under the calendar. Okay, because I see, I'm kind of a stickler on this. I noticed, for example, under December, there's an ECC meeting listed. So my question is, does this mean that the DOE is considering the ECC a group similar to CPAC? I mean, along with, because they're listed on the calendar. I'm not, so my question is, because I thought that was an advocacy group. So, because when I see ECC listed along with CPAC, you know, that's another organization that is not an official organization, but I see it on the official DOE calendar. So I'm just curious about that.
So I'll say this is official, this is the FACE calendar, this is my calendar. And just to sort of clarify, and I would say that CPAC is an advocacy group as well. Thank you, parent advocate, y'all are advocates. And you're advocates for our children. And we meet with lots of groups that are advocates for our children. And some of those FACE staffs, some of those I oversee, as you know, the intergovernmental affairs. Some of the meetings that the chancellor attends, IGA staff. So when we have our meetings with NAACP, which is incredibly important, when we have a meeting with the legislative caucus, when we have a meeting with Black elected officials, when we have, and I can go through the list of really wonderful advocacy organizations that are incredibly important to the city and to our agency. There are multiple groups in terms of our external affairs offices that staff those groups and those meetings with the chancellor, because it's important. It's so important for our chancellor to be meeting with folks in our communities that are raising up the issues and the concerns that are bubbling up through.
And Adrian, I absolutely agree with you 100%. I just would hope that, as we've seen before, that the chancellor is willing to give deference to CPAC and come to our meetings over other people's meetings and other organizations, that we get a priority in this, because we are the Chancellor's Parent Advisory Council.
I don't disagree with you. You are, the chancellor is literally a part of the name of the Chancellor's Parent Advisory Council. I know that the chancellor takes his role and his relationship with CPAC very seriously. This is just a crazy time. So I also want to just preface it with this, at least the next couple of weeks where we're reopening schools, our chancellor is in school buildings. Our first deputy chancellor is in school buildings. I have been in, and I will be later this week, in school buildings. We are all really, really trying to support our principals, our superintendents, our exec soups in the effort to reopen schools in a time where it's really difficult. And there's so many, like details that need to be accounted for and attuned and taken care of before we reopen schools. So that's where the number, and I say that because I'm like, the chancellor is going to come to CPAC and spend as much time with CPAC and ECC, frankly, as he can, with the caveat that I would say, at least for this next couple of weeks, please give us a little bit of grace, because we are really focused on making sure that when your children come to our schools, they are safe places for kids. And that's the number one priority. But agree with you wholeheartedly. Yes, CPAC has to be a priority. It is a priority. We value you all.
Thank you. Rashida, and then Francis.
But I think this is for later. Like, I don't know. She finished with the.
Okay. Then.
But don't forget me, and I don't want her to leave without me asking.
Okay. So moving on to the next thing, which this came out in the end of week wrap up for Friday. I'm going to put it out in this Friday as well, just because it's that important. This is the school reopening 2021 family guide. You can see here, it was a collaboration between FACE, Early Childhood, Climate and Well. Every office came together to put this document together.
Sorry, Adrian, can I ask you to zoom in again? I know that people are not going to be able to see it too much. Good. This is probably as big as it can be. So.
Okay. And so I want to just quickly, just so you all know what's in it, so you can start understanding why it's so important to share it with families and make sure families get a copy. I have to make it a little bit smaller, sorry, but here this is learning at home. This section was really put together with our chief academic office. That is like pedagogues saying, and experts saying, what can families do who have selected remote only, or on those remote days, what can families do to make the learning experience for our children as good as it can get at home? And so there's lots of advice, lots of suggestion from experts in this section, and then information for families to know, well, what does blended learning look like? What is remote learning going to look like? What can you expect? Going down, support for your child. This was obviously put together by multiple offices. The first part is social emotional learning support. And so I'm gonna, there's also information around our MLLs, IEPs, special education, supporting your children from home. The next section, tips to use when at school. Obviously, these are health and safety guiding principles, and information. I think It was referenced earlier on meals that are available. So there's information about school food. And then going down, accessing online school accounts and getting device help, incredibly important for you all to have. I know it's been important for me to have, but information for parents on like if they're having problems with electronic devices, how to troubleshoot, who to call. And then important contacts at DOE. Again, incredibly important because a lot of families don't know who to call. There's always change in DOE in terms of personnel. So you need to know who's who at DOE, and that's in here. So I'm gonna go through just to like, to the point, and I don't wanna belabor the point, but if I can get to the who's who section, just to give you an idea. Let's see. Contacts, this is the list of contacts. So these are, you know, like obviously things that you all know, but things that parents don't all parents don't necessarily know, which is, you know, obviously the teacher, parent coordinator, but the FLC, the FSC, the superintendent, that's sort of the escalation path for issues that are arising in schools. And then, you know, school nurses face and some information around like, here's a hotline to call DOE, and you know, other information. So just wanted
this
to share.
document will be shared tomorrow on the end of week wrap up? Or?
It will be shared tomorrow. It was shared last Friday as well. It's there.
Okay,
so won't belabor the point, but please take a look at it. Please send it out. I'm trying to think through how to print at least a page or two of this because I want families to have this information. But again, it's hard to print under these circumstances. You all know the budget. But I want you all at least to be able to share it digitally. So it's not on the website yet. You know, to Maddie's point, they are still working on translation of this document, and that is the reason. And it takes a good 2 weeks to translate into 9 languages, something this size. And so it's not, this document is not on our website. I've been sharing it out in the end of week wrap up because school started on the 16th, and I really want families to have this information. But I don't think it's going to be on our public website for another maybe week and a half, 2 weeks, because it has to go through translations, which takes time. So that's always the trade-off. So going to send it out again, but you all should have it. And now moving along, which I think y'all really want to know about. Here is the latest and greatest, the thing we have been waiting for the last couple of weeks: virtual elections, guidance for PAPTAs and president's councils. All of you should have received it this morning. It went out. It is, you know, not a short document, but it goes through all of the suggestions that and recommendations that FACE has for how to do PAPTA, President's Council, SLT elections for this year. And so thanks again to CPAC, thanks to President's Councils, thanks to FLCs and parent coordinators. We really tried to bring as many voices into this conversation as possible to get it right. And there's going to be a whole lot of follow-up in terms of training because these are new, this is a new thing. Doing an election on Zoom is new to both our PAPTAs, but also to our schools, to our parent coordinators, principals, or principal designees that are going to be supporting because there are certain principles that we thought were important to maintain, which is the confidentiality of voting, the inclusion of all families, so all parents who are part of the and caregivers part of the school community being able to participate, and ensuring all of those things is difficult in a virtual environment. So that's what this aims to do. And I know Paola is here with us, but I think the most, because you guys have had it, and I know, you know, folks may have taken a look at it already. And if you haven't taken a look at it, please check your email. It's in there. And it's online.
Is there a direct URL that can be shared with other people?
Yeah, can I put it in the chat?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think in order to do that, I'll have to stop sharing my screen, but I was thinking I would do that anyway, because I know I'm probably at time and I want to be able to take folks' questions. So I'm going to.
Okay, in the meantime, Francis can go on with question and then Rashida.
And I also, yeah, and I wanted to share, and I know this is something that CPAC asked of me. I had a really great meeting, thank you, with the executive board maybe a month or so ago, where we had lots of just, you know, I got lots of ideas from you all about how to strengthen our partnership and how to strengthen your partnership with the chancellor. And one of the things that's going to happen is that the chancellor is going to start meeting with the executive board of CPAC. So I know that doesn't directly answer Leonard's question about like, what about CPAC? Where is CPAC? But not only are we going to continue, obviously, to have the chancellor come to CPAC meetings, but he is committed to having some regular meetings with the executive board, just to make sure that there's that connectivity and alignment. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to start dropping links in the chat, and then
Right.
I'll take questions if there are some.
Right. Yeah. Definitely, Francis been there. Rashida, you want to wait till the end, right? Because it was about elections.
Not about elections.
Okay, so we'll wait on you. Go, Francis.
Good morning, Marco. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Adrian. I have my co-president who wants to ask a question on behalf of D25. Christine? Christine? Okay, I don't know.
Unmute. Sorry, I couldn't find the unmute. Good morning, everyone. It was in regards to election. I didn't get a chance to go thoroughly through the whole guidance. But one of the things I wanted to confirm was I saw something about everything had to be done by October 31st. Is that still in effect, or is that going to be pushed back a little bit? Because with schools opening and the fact that we have to depend on the parent coordinators and stuff, I was just a little concerned about that.
We're going to drive towards the October 31st date. The October 31st is the date, and it's because we had to get a waiver of provisions of the Chancellor's regulation to even be able to think about virtual elections and to extend the terms of officers. So October 31st is when that waiver expires, and the Chancellor's regulation, it goes back into full effect. So that, just to give you an idea where that came from, we're going to get as many elections, and FACE is going to support these elections. Our FLCs are going to support these elections. We're going to work with you all as much as possible to get everything done by October 31st. We are going to also monitor, because I hear you. What if this isn't possible? What if there's a school out there that doesn't have a parent coordinator? And I know this is true. And that school is struggling. Maybe the PAPTA has ceased to exist. And they just need more time. We will make sure that every PAPTA is accounted for. We will be working closely to make sure we're supporting. And then if we need to extend the deadline, we always can.
Okay, yeah, because I was just concerned because then you can't have PC elections and you can't have CPAC, like it's just kind of a domino effect.
Yeah, that's the reason why we're driving towards this date, and we want to make sure we get we want to push towards all PAPTAs doing their elections and SLTs doing their elections by October 31st. We want that to happen because otherwise you all can't play the vibrant, rich, important advocacy role that you all play. So we want to make sure we support to get that done.
Okay, thank you.
Jessica?
Hi, Adrian. I sort of have a different question, and with the blended and remote learning, I'm curious as to how the G&T or Kids in Accelerated Learning will continue to have their services offered to them, because those kids do need to sort of sometimes be at a speedier pace. I understand it's a little difficult as well because I know that we're short on teachers, etc. But I was just curious to see if that has been thought about.
It definitely has been thought about. I know our chief academic officer, I believe, has developed guidance for principals to make sure that principals are thinking about this issue and making sure they're supporting our accelerated learners. I am not a pedagogue, and so I can't go into details about what it should look like, but the chief academic officer is and can and has provided guidance. I know she's developed guidance. I believe that it's been provided to principals, but I would be happy to help facilitate having the chief academic officer or her team here. I think it's a great question. I know she spent a lot of time thinking about it. I've seen some of the guidance that she's developed around how principals should think about ensuring that there is differentiated learning happening and that the accelerated learners are getting the support they need to be challenged with a rigorous education. And so happy to bring her in. I think she's the right person to speak to it. Marco, if that's something you guys are interested in, I will, and obviously you guys can always do your own outreach, but FACE will certainly be a liaison for that request and support it and bring our chief academic officer in to speak to that. Good question.
We can see about maybe at this point it will be for the next meeting anyway. Marta.
Yes, hey, I've got a lot of chat on YouTube, so YouTubers, forgive me if I missed something. There's a concern from a parent about the large class sizes on the remote learning, that the early learners especially, kids have their hands up a long time and they don't get called on, and that's a concern that sparked a conversation. And another question directly is, when is the hiring freeze going to be lifted so that schools can hire parent coordinators and more teachers and other needed staff?
These are really great questions and obviously important issues. Can you escalate, if someone could provide the name of the school where they're experiencing the large class size, I will escalate it over to the First Deputy Chancellor's office. Obviously, the goal is to have class sizes that are small enough where, children are able to get individualized attention. And so I will escalate, and just want to clarify my role. I am the DC of Community Empowerment, Partnerships, and Communications. And my role is to provide you all with accurate, timely information about what's happening, and where you guys bring issues to my concern and you say this isn't working. My job is to make sure the folks that are responsible are aware so that they can troubleshoot and address those issues. And so if there's a school where it's not working, something's not working, there's an issue with the remote classroom or the class size is too big, please tell me the name of the school and I will escalate it right over to the First Deputy Chancellor's office so that they can take a look at it and think about staffing for that school. There is hiring happening. We are hiring. And so I think overall there's a hiring freeze, but we are hiring teachers. We're hiring substitute teachers every day, especially now because there is a need in a lot of schools for additional staffing. There is a general hiring freeze, meaning you can't just hire for anything. So I personally can't hire for my division right now because the focus is really on making sure that schools have enough staff. So the focus is on hiring teachers, and that's, I think, where the exception is. But there's a lot of hiring of teachers happening right now. And so folks have credentials. If anyone who's watching has a credential, is interested in becoming a classroom teacher, please look on our website, reach out to our HR because we are hiring and we're hiring teachers.
I guess Sabina.
Sorry,
Yeah,
we're simultaneously doing the remote learning right now with the Zoom lessons. I just wanted to say I skimmed also the guidance that came out, and it would be helpful to remind PCs and PAs that they should have their bylaws available to them as well, because sometimes their bylaws will include who their mandated officers are and things of that nature, especially for newer ones that are coming in. And it would also be really helpful to have templates, samples of the notices that should be going out, especially for those PAs that are coming in new and might not know what that looks like. So I know that D22 is going to be working together to be able to provide that for our PAs so they have those available. But that might be a good thing for sort of all of us to have to be able to share with the PCs who could share with their PAs.
Thank you. That's a great suggestion. If you want to forward them to my attention, if you have some templates that you think are particularly useful, forward to me and CPAC, the CPAC Executive Board. I don't know if you want that, Marco, but I think that would be helpful. Please send it to me. If you have ideas, you have templates, send it to us, please.
Sure.
And I'd be happy to amplify that and include it even in the Friday end of week wrap up if you can get them to me in time. That'd be great.
Just an organizational thing. So we have, by the way, I didn't announce it earlier. We have changed the schedule from the agenda that we originally shared last night. The Chancellor is coming in at 11:30 and the Office of Public Transportation is gonna be presenting at 11. We also wanted to deal with CPAC business. We could have a little section of CPAC business after 12, after the Chancellor, since now at this point we only have 5 minutes left before the Office of Public Transportation should be able to present. Is that okay with the CPAC voting members that we're gonna stay on for maybe 15 minutes after the Chancellor to deal with business and can get more questions on Adrian for the next 5 minutes? Look, I see a lot of thumbs up. So we're gonna do that. And Francis.
Hi, Adrian. I'm sorry for a second, piggyback on the elections questions. So what if a PTA is ready for elections, but the school is not? How should that be handled?
If you're having this challenge where you're ready, the school is saying, I need, if it's a reasonable amount of time. So let's say, the school says, we can't do it this, like on a, 29th, because we're opening school on the 29th. Can you give us a week? I would say, like, there's a certain amount of notice that has to be given anyway. So, like, try to work out a date. If there's just no willingness to collaborate at all, please loop in your FLC and say, hey, we really are ready to go. We want to be able to send out this notice because we have to have some lead time before the actual election. But the parent coordinator is just so busy, they can't help. Loop in the FLC. If you're having still challenges, if the FLC is also, saying like, this is impossible, we can't help you, then loop in FACE and we'll come in and we'll support.
Adrian, I know this is off, but is there any way that you can tell us what's going to happen if you have any idea with the grading policy? Because we know how it ended last year. How is the grading policy going to take place this year?
Yep. I said earlier, I will be a happy liaison to bring the chief academic officer and her team here to talk to you all. You guys know this, but if you don't know this, the chief academic officer is responsible for developing grading policy and guidance to the schools around grading policy. And so I know she's working on that. I think she's spoken to the CPAC executive board about where the direction they were thinking about going. But they haven't actually issued a grading policy yet. I think that's in part because we want to reopen schools, and I'm telling you, everyone, the chief academic policy officer, she's out there. She's literally, Dr. Chen is in schools this week and next week because it's literally all hands on deck to try to reopen and to support our principals and make sure that everything is ready to go. But with that, I'm happy to invite her here to talk to you all about it. I think it's a great idea.
We will make sure that we have her invited at the next CPAC meeting, or maybe before that. But we will be talking to you and letting you know. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Good to hear from you.
Great. Martha, then Rashid, I think you had a question, right? And then I think we're out of time.
Adrian, many questions, and I know we probably don't have time for all of them, but one parent is talking about the situation where a PA has ceased to function, and the principal is then calling a parent meeting and, urging parents to run. And she feels that this really affects the autonomy of the PA because it could create a situation where principals can then handpick from the parent pool. And would there be some way that the district, or the President's Council, if they asked us, we would come in and try and help as much as we could, but more that members of FACE and the district team would actually perform that function than the principal?
Can we escalate? It's always helpful to escalate, like, what's the school? And absolutely, we can provide support and we can come in and sort of troubleshoot because we all want fair elections. We want our parents to decide who their parent leaders are going to be for school communities. And so if there's an issue, let us know the school and we'll sort of swoop in and provide support. And I know the FLCs are in the same position. They want to be supportive. So just let us know and we will provide support and also CPAC. I think that's a great opportunity for partnership there.
Okay, so the other question is, what's the guidance on absence for students remote learning if they still do not have a device? So are they going to be penalized and marked absent because they don't have a device or connectivity, I would imagine also?
We have said, the Chancellor has said very consistently that there is a need to be flexible, particularly because we're in a remote environment. We opened on the 16th, school started, first day 16th, and we know that there are new students to our system that may not have an electronic device. There are students from even the spring who maybe have a device, but due to circumstances, they no longer have internet access. So we are going to be flexible. Our teachers are going to be flexible. Our schools are going to be flexible, but we also want to know who are those families so that we can get devices into their hands. So if you are a family, a caregiver who does not have access to an electronic device, the survey is online. Please fill out the survey. If you know of a family who doesn't have access and is struggling, please support that family member. or that caregiver and help them to fill out the survey or fill out the survey with them, or escalate it to the school. But we want to know who families are because we need to rectify it as soon as possible. But obviously we are not, the policy of flexibility and not penalizing for COVID related absences is still in effect.
Okay.
Right. Lourdes, Cecilia, and Jazzy, then that's
One more
it
quick-
because we need to move to the
Go in that
next.
order. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Austin, good morning. One of the questions that was raised before in regards to the autonomy and principals running elections. One of the things that failed to be said in page 4, where it says, what if a PTA has no officers at the start of the school? That one paragraph that was put in there failed to say that a principal should be contacting the superintendent's office as it is in the A660, so that they have the support, because as we all know, principals and parent coordinators cannot run the elections for any particular school whose PTAs has to exist.
Yeah, so the reference there, and it's important that we don't forget the chancellor's regulations entirely, right? And the reference there is back to the chancellor's regulations. So if you look further along on page 4, it says, if this is your school, if your PTA has ceased to function, you're gonna need to look at chancellor's regulation A660 1B3 and understand what you need to do next from the regulation. So there's some things that we've given, there's a waiver, there's some flexibility, but there's some things where there are not. So it's going to be important to still refer to the chancellor's regulation, which is there. It's not spelled out. You're right. It's not, we didn't actually bring the language from the reg into the document, but there is a reference there with the expectation that principals will understand. They've got to go and fully understand the regulation and comply with it. And also, to your point, there's going to need to be some training, some learning around the guidance, and FACE is going to work with FLCs, parent coordinators, parent leaders very quickly within the next, starting next week, to start getting that professional learning underway. So look out for more. FACE is committed to doing that. We're going to do that with CPAC to make sure that everyone really understands how to do these elections, because it's not going to be easy. It's going to be very technical. And what we want to make sure is that for our FLCs and for FACE, that there's as few grievances as possible, because obviously these are real elections, and if they're not done right, then folks have a right to grieve.
Thank you. Cecilia, Jazzy, quickly, because we are out of time.
Thank you, Marco. Good morning, everybody. I have a few presidents on the YouTube, and they also read a little bit of the guidelines, and I would like for you to quickly explain the validation, like what the parent coordinator does, the role of that validating the codes, and if you could please explain that.
All right, and here I am so happy I can phone a friend. I think I have Paola here. Is Paola on the line so she can speak to this? Because folks have spent a lot of time thinking about this. Is like one of the hardest pieces of the guidance is the validation piece, and they spent a lot of time thinking about it. Paola, can you?
Hi.
Hey.
Yes, I'm on. Hi, good morning. So actually, this is part of what took so long, is to figure out how to validate voters and candidates. It's the same underlying population. So I'll talk about voters. Basically, it's when you have an in-person election, people come and as they get authenticated by the parent coordinator or the principal. How do they get authenticated? There's a list, and the list is by student, and there is a way to connect that person with that student. You cannot do that virtually, because if somebody doesn't have it, you can do it visually sometimes, but you cannot do that virtually because people might sign in without their without video, or they might sign in with a different name. So there has to be a way to connect. And it doesn't matter for the meeting itself, it matters for the election. So the only way we thought, we really worked very hard on this. Before the election, well before the election, the parent coordinator or the principal has a list, and they should assign a unique number based on either random numbers or based on, there are some examples in the, in the guidance. And by the way, there's one thing that we didn't mention. If you have, if you have more than one parent, you have, and if you use the child's OSIS number, the last 4 digits, you have to add something to differentiate the parents, because one child could have more than one, could be connected to more than one PTA member. So all that needs to be done in the background. It needs to be done well ahead of time so that the number can be distributed to parents ahead of time, because that is really the only way you can tell on the screen who is a voting member, is if they have that code. And if you read the guidance very carefully, you will see that there's a mechanism with registration to make sure that the person who comes into the meeting automatically comes in with that number. That's really important, because at voting time, you need to separate people who are in the meeting, because remember, this has to be a public meeting. Anybody can come in, anybody with a link, and you cannot exclude members. You cannot exclude members of the public, sorry. So that is, at voting time, whoever does not have that number on the screen can be excluded. Now, again, you need the cooperation of the principal and the parent coordinator to make sure that those numbers that you see on the screen actually correspond to the list. So it's actually a fairly involved process, but we have tested it and it can work. One tip in the guidance that we want to make sure you guys really, you really follow: practice. Practice ahead of time. Don't go into a meeting without having practiced. Don't go into an election without having practiced.
So
okay.
Yeah.
Guys, we're gonna have actually on October 1st meetings specific to elections. We have another something else coming up, the Office of Public Transportations.
Yes.
We need to move on. Sorry, Paola, and sorry, Jazzy, if you have a question that can take like 30 seconds, you can go. But
yeah, it's just a concern in regards to the DOE iPads that Ms. Austin was speaking about earlier. So my son's iPad, I have 4 boys, all their iPads haven't been working since August, and I've put in multiple tickets since the first ticket because they were not functioning. So I requested a new iPad for my son's iPad that refuses to turn on, and I still haven't received any callbacks or anything. So like filling out the form again doesn't work for me. So like, what should that next step be?
Can you email me, Jazzy? Just email me directly and I'll escalate it, because what I don't want you to do is to request a new iPad if it's just that there's some, like, if you can get some technical support that'll get that iPad working. So just email me directly and I'll make sure somebody gets back to you ASAP.
Okay. All right. No problem. Thank you.
And Jazzy, I'm in your neighborhood. Maybe I can help you out.
No, it just doesn't turn on. Yeah, you're right. You are.
So thank you, Adrian.
Thank you. Thank you for, I don't want to take any more time. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, CPAC. Obviously, you guys have my email address. You can always contact me with questions, and I am as responsive as I can be, given that I'm getting 500 emails or more a day at this point. But thank you all for letting me be here. All right.
Thank
Be
you.
well, everyone.
Yeah. Sam from the Office of Police Transportation.
Sean Fitzpatrick.
Yes. Sean, sorry.
That's okay.
Yes.
Hi, how is everyone? Good. Glad to be here. So I want to just present some information to you, and then just very quickly, and then give you an opportunity to ask questions or discuss. So I'm just going to share my screen very quickly. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, now we're starting to see it. Yeah.
Great. Okay, very good. So I just want to run through a couple of points here. So one thing I want to emphasize is, safety is our #1 concern. It's mission number one, and that's safety for all the students and the bus personnel as well. And what we've been doing for quite a while now is we've been collaborating with all the other DOE departments and other agencies in New York City, such as the MTA, New York City Transit. We've done that to gather lessons learned and leverage best practices amongst all of us. So when I say other DOE departments, for example, the Department of Facility Services. So we've been collaborating quite a bit on procedures. We've also been consulting with national and international organizations as well on health and safety. So the National Association of Pupil Transportation, the CDC, Center for Disease Control, and NAS, the National Academy of Sciences. So just quickly, for the first day of school, which started on the 21st, so we ran 2,753 D75 routes over just under 20,000 students. We ran 1,442 non-public or charter routes, about 17,000 students. We've also enhanced our call center. And what we've done is we've put together a collaboration with the New York City 311 service, and we've actually integrated that with our call center. So what that's done is that's enabled us to have more capacity, more bandwidth, and more ability to handle those calls. So we actually have dedicated 311 staff where we've routed the number, and it's seamless to the public because they call the same number that they've always called. But we've also trained those reps to handle level 1 calls and escalate to level 2 if need be. So as you can see here, day 1, we handled just about 1,500 calls. The average wait time was about 11 seconds. Day 2, we handled just under 900 calls. Average wait time was about 10 seconds. Over the next 2 weeks, we're going to be adding another 5,500 routes per the startup schedule, and about another 37,000 students over the next 2 weeks. The last slide I have is just to remind everyone. So the buses are being cleaned and disinfected every night. We've distributed electrostatic sprayers to all the bus locations. We've also distributed the chemical disinfectant that's utilized to disinfect those buses, and PPE as well. And for those who are unfamiliar with the electrostatic sprayers, the reason that those are important is the electrostatic sprayer actually electrically charges the disinfected particles as they're discharged. So instead of just laying on the surface when they're sprayed out onto the surface and just hitting what surfaces they can hit, they actually interact with the electrical charge of the surface that it's hitting, and it actually wraps around those surfaces. So even though the disinfectant doesn't necessarily hit the surface, it can actually wrap around and under, so around poles, hand poles on buses, seats. So it's a much more effective method of disinfecting. So we're utilizing that. We've taken a lot of lessons learned from the MTA. They've been at this now for several months ahead of us, so they've learned a lot in how to properly disinfect buses, and we're trying to leverage that. We've also distributed Metro cards to all the schools for those who need it. We've also added surplus to that Metro card distribution to account for additional students that will need the Metro cards, as well as parents that may need to accompany those students. So those Metro cards have already been distributed across the entire school population. And finally, the thing that we've been emphasizing most importantly is the safety of everyone utilizing the buses. So, wearing face masks on the bus, social distancing, and we're adjusting routes over the next 2 to 3 weeks based on the session times that the schools are inputting, as well as spacing accommodations that need to be made. So if we have a bus that has too many children on it, we need to add another bus to that particular route to accommodate this social distancing. Those adjustments are being made as we speak. Now, as far as session times go, there's been a lot of discussion about session times. The session time application, the physical application that the schools utilize to input their session times will actually open up late tonight. So the schools will then begin to put in their specific session times so that we can adjust those routes accordingly. So over the next 2 to 3 weeks, the issue of buses arriving too early, too late should gradually go away. So we believe, based on the number of students that are projected to be using the buses, that we have enough bus capacity, excess bus capacity, to adjust those routes accordingly. So in a quick snapshot, that's essentially where we are right now, and I'm happy to take any questions.
I have Cherie with her hand raised.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Patrick.
Hi.
Hi, my question is, thank you for that information about the session times, that portal opening to be able to pass on to our schools. So I would like to get clarification on who is supposed to be notifying families, because schools tell us that OPT will contact us about the bus routes and the times, and then OPT tells us the schools will be. So I know there's information in our NICSA account, but as we were told that the times in that account may not be accurate, the routes may not be accurate. So who is supposed to let families know where their bus routes and their times?
Right. So, you mentioned the NICSA account. So our process right now is to have that information in the NICSA account. The schools, the bus companies themselves should be notifying the parents of any adjustments that are being made to the session times and the route pickup and drop off times. So we're in the process of kind of ironing out that and making sure that the bus companies are aware of that. And for the most part, they are, but I'll take a note to myself and make sure that that actually happens.
Thank you. Francis?
Hi, how are you? Thank you. I have a question. It's my understanding that 100% remote students are not receiving MTA Metro cards because they're assumed that they're staying home, but that may not be the case. They might be traveling to another home to do the homeschooling. So I just wanted to see how that's going to be handled.
Yeah, so I'll have to go back on that. That's a good point. I don't think that was considered when the policy was developed. So I will have to take that back to my leadership at Central and see if we can issue a clarification on that.
Marta?
Sorry, I'm flipping back and forth between screens. Question from YouTube. Mr. Fitzpatrick, what about medical buses for kids whose schools only have them scheduled for part of the day, once or twice a week?
Right, so we have, as you probably are aware from reading in the media, the bus contracts were basically frozen when the pandemic hit. We've renegotiated all those contracts. The ambulatory contracts were, I believe they have been finalized as of this morning. I got an email about that specific service. So that should be in place beginning next week, I believe. But I will have to clarify that and make sure that this group is aware of that.
Thank you. Jessica?
Hi, thank you for being here. I just had a quick question. I know on my daughter's bus there was more than one school on the bus, but I'm assuming that now there's only one school per bus route?
Not necessarily. It depends on It depends on the volume of students. And again, we'll probably make adjustments accordingly over the next 2 to 3 weeks based on social distancing. But we do have procedures set up in the event that we have multiple schools being serviced by a particular route. We do have contact tracing mechanisms in place so that if there is someone on that bus that is diagnosed with a positive diagnosis, we then activate the contact tracing procedure that we have in place, and all of the appropriate families that are affected are immediately notified. That's actually done through we have a contact trace unit within our situation room, and they're being fed data constantly.
Judy?
That was part of my question you've answered, Mr. Fitzpatrick. The only part I would ask is, would parents be notified if their bus route is going to have more than one school on it?
That I'm not sure of. I'll have to get back to you on that. I'm not sure if that's actually in the notification, but it's a good question and I'll find out.
Okay, and is it possible for you to share the test and trace protocol? I guess what I've been looking for is, if there are 2 schools on a bus and one student is tested positive, in one school, who's supposed to notify the other school, the other families, that there was a positive test from another school on that bus?
Right. So we actually have medical personnel in the situation room that are basically tasked to do that. They will notify the principal of the affected school directly, and also ascertain that the parents of the students affected will be notified immediately, because they have to certify that there are quarantine procedures put in place right away.
Martha, go ahead. Martha?
Okay, sorry guys for the delay. I'm just flipping back and forth. Okay, so if a child cannot wear a mask, this is a question from Grace, due to medical or emotional diagnosis, will they still be allowed on the bus if they have an exemption? Do they need stuff like a document, exemption? How does that work?
Yeah, great question. So first and foremost, we would like that student to have a documented medical exemption. And if that's the case, then what we'll do is we will plan that route accordingly so that student can be properly social distanced on the bus, and to make sure that all the other students on that bus are socially distanced and wearing masks to the best of their ability as well. In a case where a bus pulls up and a student doesn't necessarily have a note or documentation, but either can't or won't wear a mask, we will not leave a student at the stop. The student will be permitted on the bus. If need be, if a bus is already at capacity, we will try to dispatch an additional bus to that location within a reasonable amount of time to get that student to school so that they can be socially distanced. But the bottom line is we are not going to leave any student at a stop.
Okay. Actually, I have a question from me. I've been busy fielding questions from YouTube, but I remember last year the Chancellor talked about using the computer system from VIA. I don't know if there was even any talk about actually using their cars and drivers, but is that going ahead? Because it's an incredible system where, you can actually track your kid where they are.
Right. So yeah, great question. And so interesting that you bring that up, because I just had a meeting with the day before yesterday. So when the pandemic hit, because of the fiscal situation, the effort to implement VIA was put on hold. The contract is still in place. And once we are past this initial startup, meaning the next 2 weeks, I already have met with the team, the VIA team, and our implementation team to get that jump started again. So that implementation will continue within the next several weeks. We're hoping to have that completed, the roadmap that we've laid out. We're hoping to have that completed by late in 2021, early 2022.
Right. Francis.
I have a question coming in. What happened? Was it budgeted for kids that are doing 100% remote when they change back to going to blended to get a Metro card? And if so, what's the quickest way, the quickest turnaround time?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually, the Metro card, the quantity of Metro cards that we've acquired, we assumed a full student population. So we have Metro cards pretty much for anybody that needs them. So the quickest way to do that is to submit the request a little bit ahead of time if possible. So if you're a remote only student and you're going to opt back into blended in November or at one of the other cutoff points during the year, maybe a week or two before that, submit that form and you should be in good shape. The school has the Metro cards ready to distribute.
Great. Sherry.
I have a question for my district. Is the MTA special buses that usually wait outside of schools, or is that program going to continue and be available to schools?
Right. So we are monitoring that. We had a discussion with the MTA about this. Right now, because of the decrease in the volume of students that are currently attending school in person, there's been a few, not many, there's been a few additions to the MTA bus route. But as we go forward, when we see those numbers start to go up in terms of the number of students attending a particular school, we will definitely notify the MTA. And from our discussions with the MTA, they can turn on those additional buses on those routes very quickly, usually within 48 hours.
Great. We're gonna continue with questions. We're waiting. The Chancellor should come in any minute, but we're gonna go on with the question till he actually comes in. Marta, I see there were more questions from YouTube if you want to relate them.
Unmuting, heading back to YouTube. I'm on a laptop, so I have to just keep flipping back and forth. All right, YouTube. There was a question about the medical buses with chair lifts. A parent asked, how many do we have? And I guess I would say, do we have enough? Picking up kids who, in wheelchairs and with, medical needs.
Yes, so we've compiled that information. We believe we do have, I don't know the exact number, but my special needs population director said that we believe we have sufficient bandwidth to cover that. In the event that we don't, what we've done also is, and this hasn't even been formally rolled out yet, we're a couple of days away from this, so I'll kind of give you a preview, but we're very close to having a formal arrangement with TLC to provide direct access for a service that they are providing. And part of that service are wheelchair accommodated vehicles. So in the event that we have a shortfall, we'll be able to backfill that pretty quickly. but everything that I've been told so far is that we have sufficient bandwidth.
Great. And then just a very quick follow-up question. There was a question about MTA buses. Will they be back in circulation? Will you be using them? That they were special MTA buses that would wait outside school? New to me, but.
Yeah. So yeah, as I was saying, we're actually monitoring that on a day-to-day basis, and it's really based on the volume of students. As we see the volume of students at a particular school go up, and we're going to be looking at that very closely, especially the early part of next week and the week after that, when the high schools start. If the numbers are sufficient for those particular schools, the MTA has discussed this with us, and they can turn that on within usually 24 to 48 hours.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I see the Chancellor joined us. So I'm gonna thank the Office of Public Transportation very much. Thank you, Sean. And Chancellor Carranza, you can take the floor. There might be some technical problem.
He's speaking, but we can't hear him.
We can't hear him at all. Can't hear you, Chancellor.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, Chancellor. Maybe you need to like leave and join again. I don't know. It looks there is a microphone issue with you. You have you as unmuted, but we can now hear you.
Okay, it's going to re-sign in again.
So he just left a moment, just for everybody to know. He just left a
Yeah,
moment. He should be coming right back in.
Yeah, the Chancellor's going to try another computer that has
okay.
a better mic.
Okay. Okay. Worst thing that happened, you can just call in for the mic and be on the screen just with that computer. If anything else, if it doesn't work otherwise.
But he's got IT behind him, so
All right. Okay. Great. Great. He should be able to solve it.
Still not working, Chancellor, and it's producing a really strange static sound.
Yeah, otherwise, if you want to just use the call-in number for voice, and yeah.
How's this?
Perfect.
Ugh.
I am so sorry, folks. Technical difficulties over here. So I was saying thank you all for joining. I have a hard stop at noon because we have a citywide test and trace meeting for schools. So in lieu of any comments, I just want to go ahead and launch into question and answer.
Oh, wow. Okay. Fantastic. People, go ahead, Sherry.
Good morning, Chancellor Carranza. Well, you surprised us, so let's hit it. First question for families. We had asked previously during the summer, and I wanted to find out if there's been any update in terms of negotiating internet access for families with some of our service providers, whether it's with T-Mobile, whatever, for discounts on mobile hotspots to be able to allow families who do not have internet access to get internet access without necessarily taking on additional devices. That's one.
I am very, very sad to say they are not budging. So we've engaged in a full court press with our elected officials, both at the federal, state, and local level. The mayor has weighed in as well, and we're just blitzing them on being able to provide that service for our families. I am just really, really upset with these folks because we've made the case, I think, very clearly about why it's important, why our families need it, but they're just not budging yet. So I hope to have some better news to share in the next week or so.
On that note, actually, I'd like to share the information. There is a non-for-profit called NYC Mesh that has been providing free internet, I mean, low-cost internet with you don't have to pay if you don't want to. So it's effectively free if you cannot afford it. It's not throughout New York City, it's only in certain locations, but it's a great resource, and it will be nice to maybe leverage their capability, at least for the areas that they are able to cover. Rashida. Yeah.
Thank you. Good morning, Chancellor. My question is about the end of October deadline. You know how schools have I call it the enrollment funded deadline. So like students enroll by a certain date and the schools get funded for these students. Has that deadline budged at all or any type of change, or it's still the end of October?
Yeah, it's still, as far as I know, it's still the end of October, but I know that I have some of my colleagues here from the DOE that might be able to add a little more information to that. We continue to also work with the state around some flexibilities because it's all kind of tied together. But I don't have anything new to report yet. Is anybody here from attendance that could add any more, or finance?
And just wanted to add a little bit of context is because students are still trying, the families I know are still trying to transfer to different schools because of the whole situation. And we know the history of charter schools enrolling students. And then, so I suspect it may be a lot of that, and hoping we can keep an eye out and try to figure out a better way this time around more than anything for in regards to charter schools dropping a lot of their students back off to the traditional public schools.
Yeah, it's definitely on our radar, and we're trying to work with everybody that has a kind of a hand in it to make sure that it makes sense for all of us.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Francis.
Hi, Chancellor. Thank you so much for all your hard work. I just have a question. Since schools were supposed to open September 10th, and then it was pushed to September 29th, and now October 1st, I just want to know, how are we really going to open October 1st, or we're going to get another message because of all these side conversations with the UFT and the principals? We just want to know, is it really going to open October 1st?
Yes, it will really open October 21st. So the 29th and October 1st. So on September 21st, as everybody knows, pre-K, 3K, and then District 75 came back to blended learning, and everybody in the system started remote learning on the 21st. I have been out in the field every single day, and I have to tell you that it's been absolutely incredible to see what's happening in the schools. Even our youngest learners are having really no issues with their masks. Parents have done a great job at getting them ready. And we specifically wanted our pre-K, 3K, and D75 students back because we know that our youngest learners were disproportionately impacted with remote learning, as well as our most fragile students, our students in D75. So we needed them back in person. It's been heartwarming to see what's happening in the schools. It really has. There's a lot of noise out there about don't and stay fully remote, but I will tell you, to a school, and I've been to about 15 schools, teachers are excited. They're nervous, but they're excited. Students are excited. Parents are excited. So we also, for next Tuesday, we are on track to open up elementary schools. That will not move. We will open. We are tracking the staffing for in-person. So we have a daily war room where we're tracking that. We will have everybody staffed by this weekend. Schools are busily hiring teachers as well. The city has provided additional funding so that schools are able to hire, but if they can't hire, they can hire long-term subs until they're able to actually hire a person in that position. And then by this weekend, by early Tuesday, we'll be ready for the Thursday start for our middle schools and high schools, and we're tracking all of that as well. So as definitively as I can possibly be, I'm telling you, it's not going to move. We will be back in person on the 29th and October 1st.
Great. Thank you. Marta, go ahead.
Good morning, Chancellor. It's lovely to see you. I'm monitoring the YouTube chat today, and I have been copying and pasting numerous questions into an email, which I think I will then send to your office so you can see all the really great questions from our parents and parent activists who are following this on YouTube. There's a lot of concern about learning standards and grading. And is the learning trajectory, in core content. So I think to try and combine 3 or 4 questions, I'm going to say, is grading going to be, how is grading going to be? And how are we building the core to align from the last year's benchmarks?
Yeah, so, sorry, Martha.
Yeah, go ahead, Chancellor.
Yeah, so absolutely. One of the things that we've tried to be very thoughtful about in this semester is making sure that the learning continuum and I would say curricular continuum is tight. Because in March, when we transitioned very quickly, that wasn't something that we really had a lead ramp up to. We've had much more time. We've built an instructional model that will allow us to make sure that the learning continuum is much stronger. And with that being much stronger, it allows us also then to have grading policies that are much closer to what everybody's used to. Now, with that said, regardless of how well we are able to do that, there's still going to be significant disruption. I mean, not all children are going to be in school in person 5 days a week. There's going to be remote learning. There's going to be all of the challenges associated with remote learning. So there will still be some acknowledgement of that in terms of how grades are calculated this year.
See, that's the thing. He couldn't.
And then, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, then there's going to be, so there'll be more information that comes out about that. And obviously we want to have some more voices involved, parental voices in particular, around what that looks like. But in total transparency, all hands are on deck right now with opening schools in person, making sure it's safe, making sure it's medically feasible, making sure that the remote, the blended, and the in-person are in place. And then you're going to see us ramp up and beef up all 3 of those learning modalities as we get farther into the semester.
Right, thank you. Leonard, then Martha, you can go back on if you have more questions from YouTube.
Sure, just to follow up. Oh, sure. Hi, Chancellor. Thank you for coming. Just to follow up on Martha's question. So we have a lot of parents who are really trying to figure out, they're looking forward. I understand we're completely focused. We support you 100% on reopening schools. I know that's the #1 priority, but we have a lot of parents who are focused on, looking ahead. So they need guidance for 5th grade admissions, for 7th grade admissions, for G&T programs, because they're trying to plan whether or not they even want to stay in the city. So can you offer any guidance at this time on those issues, specifically like G&T, fifth grade admissions? What are we going to use? Because the guidance I thought was supposed to come out in July. So I'm just wondering for admissions, fifth grade, seventh grade, anything you can offer would be appreciated.
Yeah, thanks, Leonard. It's a fair question. There's going to be nothing before mid-October, end of October. I mean, I just have to be honest. All hands are on deck are making sure our schools are safe and we have a safe opening. So it's not like it's not on our radar, but I've directed all of the staff to all hands on deck on the safe reopening. So more to come. It's not going to be before mid-October, probably late October.
Okay, great. Thank you. Marta, you have more coming from YouTube?
Many more, but I'm going to say, does that also apply, Chancellor, to information about G&T testing and high school admissions and SHSAT, all of those? I'm going to call it a bouquet of, issues that, that people are really want to know about. What can they expect?
Yeah, the cornucopia of admissions, yes. That it applies to all of that, all of that.
All right, thank you. Sherry, go ahead. Then I'll go back to you, Marta, again.
Okay, my second question has to do with support or backing, I would say, for PAs and PTAs. We don't have a decision yet, or one has been shared or hasn't been shared with us about whether we can go back into a school building and whether we can do work within our school buildings or not, or where we're going to do work as us. We do know as PAs and PTAs that we have to choose, figure out how to work in this environment, but we need you and the DOE Central to put out something stating whether we can go in or not. I know we can work it out with our principals, but without that mandate, we're being told they're waiting to hear from you.
Yeah, Cherie, really good question. So again, what we're trying to do is limit the number of human beings in a school building and again, the work that PAs and PTAs do are essential. We get that. But the less people we have in buildings, then the less opportunity there is for an infection or the spread of an infection should there be a positive test case. And you see that in a lot of the guidance that we've gotten from the physicians, where children are staying in pods or small groups. We've already seen that where there's been a positive test case in a school, because we've been potting, it's been very easy to understand who are the close contacts and then monitor and then have those folks quarantine for a number of days or at least stay home for a number of days. Obviously, the more people you add to a school building, then it becomes much more difficult then to trace who are the close contacts, when have they been there, what are they bringing, all of those things. So out of total transparency, the guidance has been you limit the entrance to schools to just teachers, just students, just essential staff, and you limit all other entrants until we get a better idea of what we can do and where we can open up spaces. Again, not ideal, and it's not a reflection on the valuable role that we see for PAs and PTAs. It's just kind of the reality right now of the medical advice that we currently have. We are actually, one of the meetings that I have to get on at noon around test and trace is looking at some of these questions as well. Like, when can we start having extended learning, for example? And we have CBOs that do enrichment after school. And what are the parameters and what's the guidance to be able to do those kinds of activities as well? So there's more coming. Just right now, I'm going to ask for everybody's patience as we really limit who's coming into schools for the immediate future.
Thank you. Aaron, go ahead, District 31. Oh, no, high school, actually, Long Island High School.
Good morning, Chancellor. Thank you so much for giving us this time, as always. I just have questions and a couple of questions, and I'll kind of combine it. Districts, my district in particular, we're having some worries and concerns regarding the live online learning. A lot of the parents that I've been getting emails and texts from constantly are feeling, for lack of a better word, duped. They chose the blended learning with the understanding that they would get live instruction when it was remote. We were told at the very beginning of this whole thing that we would get live learning from teachers from our school that we're familiar with, and that has since changed. Now it's since changed that if you are a blended student, you will not necessarily get live instruction while on remote. Many of my parents are now switching over to the fully remote because of this. Again, a lot of our parents in my district, and I can't speak for the rest of the city, but in my district, they feel, as I said, for lack of a better word, like they were duped, and they aren't getting the services that they need and they require for their kids, especially some of our special needs kids and some of our children with IEPs. We need some help and support with that. I have many schools in my district that are very short with teachers, where classes are still have vacancies. So where are we going with that?
So Aaron, I always appreciate your honest questions, and it's a good question. I would just say I have no vested interest as chancellor to dupe any parents. I don't get a bonus.
I know that.
There's nothing in it for me to say we're going to do one thing and then we have to do another thing. But again, in total transparency, I know of school districts that have started remote learning and in-person learning, and they set up these cameras in the classroom, and literally kids that are on remote see the teacher walk by the camera as a teacher's lecturing to the kids. And that is the most horrible form of pedagogy that I can even think of. We said from the beginning that whatever we do is going to be the best that we can do, and we're not going to settle for the least common denominator. So we could have done that, and we could have called that synchronous learning, but it's not really synchronous learning. So when it became very apparent that to do an in-person and then to do a blended, where you have a teacher dedicated to working with students and teaching the students in the remote portion of the blended learning, and the numbers from principals started coming into us, there were a lot of numbers that were shared. We finally landed, it's about 6,000 additional teachers that we need to make that kind of a model work. That's a model that all of us can stand behind, because it's actually a teacher working with students and giving students feedback and giving students not only the lesson, but answering their questions as well. In order to do that, we need to ramp up to that. So what I would say to parents is that it's going to continue to get better, and it's going to continue to get better every week in terms of the blended learning aspect of what we're doing. Now, with that, the question is, how are you then fulfilling the need for additional staff? Well, I have to tell you, at the expense of a lot of other things, the city hall and the mayor have given us additional resources. We've now given 2 what we call SAMs. Think of it as a funding check to schools to hire additional teachers and hire additional substitutes. We've reached out now to over 20,000 people that have student taught with us in the New York City Department of Education, over 10,000 people that have previously applied to the New York City Department of Education. We've now reached out to folks, and unfortunately the economy, in this case, it's been horrible, but it's actually a benefit to us, because there are folks with bachelor's degrees and master's degrees that are eligible to be substitute teachers. We've reached out to them. We've also reached out and are working closely with the Chancellor of the CUNY system, and he's recruiting for us adjunct faculty members, which at the high school level would be invaluable, because then you have the physics teacher, the chemistry teacher, the mathematics professor that can come in and work, because they're not working right now, and help us with our high school classes. So because of all of those things that we're doing, we're going to continue to be able to ramp up and bring back more and more synchronous instruction to that blended portion of our blended portion instructional model. So again, you know, I always want to be honest with parents and our community, and that's just what it was. We just didn't have enough teachers. That being said, I'll also say one more thing. Schools had to make a decision about what model they were going to use to program their children. Because we knew that from the survey, there were some parents that had already chosen a complete remote model, and then some parents that had tacitly chosen a blended learning model. So we know that from our D75 students and our pre-K 3K students that have already come back, that in some cases, parents have obviously made the decision that they're going to move to a remote learning model, kind of what you were talking about, Aaron. Mm-hmm. So what's, in a weird kind of way, it's created then the space in schools so that some schools that had chosen a model now are able to offer 5 days a week to the students that have chosen in-person learning, because they have less students in person. They're able to pivot to whoever is in person now gets 5 days a week. So it's become a much more robust experience for those students. Now, my goal, and I've said this to principals all along, is that we will do such a good job with these 3 time periods that students come back, that when we get to November and the first opportunity for students to transition back to in-person, that we're going to have a number of families that are going to say, okay, we've seen you can do it. We've seen you can do it safely. Now we want to come in person as well. That would be that would be success in my book, but we will continue to ramp up.
Okay. Thank you, Chancellor. Rashida?
Thank you. Hi again, Chancellor. I just wanted to ask if we can explore the option of not allowing families to opt to 100% remote at any given time, because as you know, as we all see, it's hard to get a grip on our numbers of blended learners because the constant changes of families going to 100% remote. And like I've said in the beginning, it's a false sense of data because it's like folks who are trying to game the system. They'll try the blended for a week and then go to 100% remote. And it just creates the tireless work and chaos for our schools who are planning and trying to manage these constant changes. Yeah, if we don't give families the options to go 100% remote at any time, it might help us manage.
Yeah, from a management perspective, Rashida, I couldn't agree with you more. But one sure way of getting me killed is to take away choice from families in New York City. They'll take me out on the street corner for sure. Again, it's the lesser of evils, and I think that as principals are working with families, what I also don't want is I don't want families to just say, well, we're not going to engage in anything. So again, we're trying to manage that, and I think it's getting tighter. The real I would say barometer is going to be this coming Tuesday when our elementary schools come back in person. And then we'll have a much better idea what that looks like. Marco, I think I have time for one more question.
Yeah, Marta, you were monitoring YouTube. Any more? Yeah, go ahead.
Please. I do have one more question, and there's been a long conversation about class size remotely. So the question is, will the DOE issue publish I'm sorry, let me look, I'll read this. Will they be reported as it's required by November 15th? And will it be disaggregated by in-person, remote, and full-time? And following on from that, many parents are saying that their children are in live, remote classes that are very large, and that they're frustrated that they're just not getting the time, or they're not getting recognized when their hand is up.
So there's a lot of models that are happening, Martha, and you know, think of 1,800 schools, you almost have 1,800 models. But one of the fundamental models that we agree to with UFT and CSA is that for students that are in remote learning, because a teacher is providing the instruction, teachers are working in groups. And for the vast majority of our schools, they're utilizing this model. So in this particular case, it is possible for the teacher that is providing the lesson on any particular day that is particularly good in that content area or that subject area or that lesson or unit, the teacher could provide through a virtual means the instruction or the lesson for 100 students. But then those 100 students then have their own teacher that follows up with them, that answers questions about the lesson, that gives them feedback on any written or any kind of work that they have to do based on that lesson, and gives them, it's a much smaller group. I often refer to folks, and I don't know about anybody else's experience, but when I was in college, it was not unusual in some of my entry level psychology classes, for example, that we would be in an auditorium, 600 of us, and the professor would give the lecture, and then we had our small group discussion sessions where there were 20 of us with a graduate assistant, and then we got to ask questions and clarify and turn in our work and get feedback. Same kind of a concept, but again, it's because of this staffing challenge that we've had to be, and schools have had to be very creative about how do we get the content level knowledge out, and then how do we still provide much more personalized feedback for students. So that will continue to become robust as we go forward in the semester. So again, Marco and everyone, thank you so much for your questions, always very thoughtful. Here comes Tuesday. We will be in session on Tuesday, and then on Thursday, we will be in session again on Thursday. And I just want to thank you all for all that you do, and we'll be in touch again very soon. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you, Chancellor. Have a good day. So, like we said before, we're gonna now step into our CPAC business. We have pretty much 3 items that we need to address. One is we had, I emailed you guys, I meant emailed the voting members the minutes from last meeting, and I don't know if there are any modification or any correction that we should put on, or if we can just adopt those minutes as they are. I'm gonna wait for till the end of the meeting to say that we are adopting it, so that if you haven't had the time to look at it, you can now jump back, look in your email, and then we're gonna go. The other thing, I would like Marie, who has been chairing the bylaw committee, the revision of the bylaw, to just give us an update. We have nothing ready yet to be voted on. Nothing was shared as the recommendation, but Marie, just go ahead.
Yes. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. The bylaws committee has been pretty much at the process of reviewing, revising our bylaws, and not just for this month. Actually, we had started back in January as well as February. And of course, in March, then COVID happened, so everything have been sort of been set aside. But we have been meeting consistently for the past few weeks, sporadically, even 3 to 4 times in a week, which is quite a whole lot. And as we're gearing up to wrap up and also make our recommendations and propose amendments to the membership, to the council, we're hoping to wrap this up by the end of this month, so that we can then send our recommendations and the amendments to the membership, which will be actually 10 days prior to our next general membership meeting for sometime in October. And this is where we are with that. So it would be forthcoming.
Right. Thank you, Marie. So to that note, we made a couple of changes to the scheduled meetings that we had. We originally were planning to have elections at our CPAC meeting in October 8th. That clearly is not gonna happen. But we're gonna have definitely an October 1st meeting, not for reviewing the bylaws, but rather to address the President Council and PAPTA's elections, review the guidance. Then we might have multiples actually in that week or the following week, because I think we might want to organize one special in Spanish. I know there is a lot of requests for it. So we could organize one that is in Spanish. And we could organize multiple in English even, and also with translation, hopefully. But maybe the 15th, we can have a general membership meeting for adopting those bylaws, and the 29th have their regular scheduled meeting, so that if we actually are able to have all their election in October, which we might decide that we need to postpone it and we're gonna have to deal with that if that's the case, then that will be the date. We will be able to do it all the way to the end of October. To that note, we actually need to create, according to our current bylaw, we need to create at this September meeting, at this meeting, the nominating committee. And so here I would like people to nominate themselves for it. In order to be part of the nominating committee, remember that you will not be able to run for any CPAC position. And you can be also an exiting member, meaning you might, you are current member, but you might already know or respect that you're not gonna be reelected as the president council rep or president council president. Either one, according to our bylaw, can be part of the nominating committee. And we would love to have 3 people to take that role. I see a lot of silence. I know Martha actually suggested that she could take that role, at least one of them.
But,
yeah, hey, Marco, I'm happy to be part of the committee. I was waiting in case a whole bunch of people rushed to do it. I was trying to let them step up. But if anyone would like to join, I'd be more than happy, as I will not be running again.
Marco, we have to take in, thank you, Cherie, for the reminder. Remember, October 1st is the first day of blended in person for middle school and high school's family. So they want to make sure that their students, their children are situated. So we might not be able to do that on October 1st, since they push things back.
True, or actually, what if we do it maybe in the evening instead than in the morning?
Well, it depends. Some people are not available. They already have their schedules and stuff booked. So we might have to go back.
Well, okay,
I'm looking at everyone's reactions. It's just not good.
It's not
okay,
good.
so we'll
have
skip
to do
the
a
October.
poll.
We'll skip the October 1st and we'll figure out another day that works.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes.
So we'll do that among the voting members.
Okay, thank you.
But also to add with the nominating committee, just to clarify with what you said, it's we use the term, and we currently also have it in our bylaws, outgoing. Outgoing meaning that at this one, you no longer at this one, will be reelected. You're not seeking reelection, and so forth. So those people can actually put themselves in that category if they would like to volunteer as you seeking members for the nominating committee, which should be done at this point. And that's why Marco is bringing it up to you all now. So seeking volunteers, and also preferably members who are not running for office, and also that's outgoing and would not be reelected to be members of the nominating committee.
Correct. And don't think that you're going to be left alone, right? Anybody that is, I think the main requirement will be you are not planning to run for executive board position on CPAC, or you are outgoing member. And
I would love to volunteer, Marco. This is Damara. I am outgoing, so I would love to volunteer for this.
Thank you, Damara. So we have 2 at this point.
High schools in the house.
Also volunteer. Sorry, who just volunteered? I just want to make sure I get the name correct for the minutes.
Martha and Damara. So Manhattan High School. Yeah, go ahead.
Damara Lee. From Brooklyn High School PC, and then you have Martha Kessler in high school thus far. And also, Marco, if I may add that members or anyone else can also email. And if they choose, at a later time, they decided they want to be part of it, they can also email you their names.
Marie, can you remind me, how does it work? Do we need to vote on their position, or is just get appointed, like you volunteer?
No,
that's
it's just, there's no appointment. You actually have to seek volunteers. You could have surely had sent it out by email to the entire membership that you were seeking members to be part of the nominating committee, but no vote is necessary.
Okay.
Marie, a question from YouTube. Can alumni or non-members be on the nominating committee?
We currently have in our bylaws, it has to be voting member, and that's the stating, or outgoing members. And that's the wording currently in the bylaws. I think that would be up to the membership if they choose to want to include that, but it has always been outgoing members or members of CPAC.
Right. Outgoing will be somebody that was a member in this year or this past year till June at the very least.
That's
and
correct.
Then,
yes.
Right. It is definitely a consideration that we might want to do, to add alumni as a possibility, but that will require a bylaw change that we don't have yet. Anyone else? Otherwise, we can just leave it at that for the moment. And
they can
and
email
CPAC. We can all, right, and the other people can email CPAC and be added to the nominating committee. Okay, so I see no other takers. So it's Marta and Damara.
Marco,
yes.
I had a question. Up until when can we volunteer for the nominating committee?
Just this month. Just this month.
Okay. So before September's finished.
Right. Yeah. Assuming. So if we decide or have to postpone the election of October, then you potentially will have more time. But otherwise,
you need 3, right?
Makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. It cannot be only 2 volunteers. It has to be 3.
I think that's what our bylaw says, right?
Yeah, just minimum 3. Yes. Yeah, just minimum 3, and no more than 4 if necessary. That's it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Now, so let's see if anyone has any correction or amendment to the meeting minutes from last meeting.
August, yes, August.
Okay, since looks like no one has any changes proposed, we adopt the minutes from August. We will post it on as a link to the meeting on the CPAC website, to last meeting on the CPAC website. I don't think we have anything else unless somebody else has any CPAC business that would like to be addressed, or I think we have done.
Marco, can you review the meeting dates? It was in the chat. Someone asked you to post it, but did you review it again?
Well, so we're gonna have to decide what happens on. So we're not gonna have a meeting on October 1st because it's correct. It's a conflict with the first day of blended learning for many schools. We're gonna notify and come up with another date. I'm gonna notify the members and also like the whole mailing list. But the other meeting, we're definitely gonna have one meeting on October 15th. That's gonna be a general membership meeting, not the election meeting. And we're gonna have the 29th as the, at the moment is the election meeting, is also gonna be a general membership meeting. If for any reason we decide to postpone the election, then that's gonna be end up in November. But we're still gonna have those meetings independently of election. And if the election don't take place, we'll do other things. It's not that we are missing things to do.
Okay, so my question about holding CPAC election on October 29th, is that assuming?
Can you talk closer to the mic? We missed a
Sorry,
piece.
can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Is holding a CPAC election on October 29th, is that assuming that president's councils have had their elections already?
So there is actually something that is also being discussed in the bylaw committee. So our bylaws right now state that we have in September before the nominating committee, in October we do the elections. There is no things that say, but you can change it and do it in November. Now, of course, if we don't have quorum, which will be having at least 10 president councils that had their elections, we will not we will not be able to have the elections anyway. My recommendation for a bylaw change is that we also make an addition that we can, having a small number of president council having held their election, with a vote from the floor, we can postpone the election, right? Because right now we will need a bylaw modification to postpone the elections. My suggestion is that we modify our bylaws so that with a simple vote from the floor, we can postpone the election if a situation like not enough president council have had their elections. We cannot necessarily wait for all president council to have had it, because that could put us on hold till indefinitely. But we could have a rule in which we say the membership decides if they are enough or not. And of course, less than 10 is just not enough to even hold the election. So that's out of question. More than 10, we can say like less than 15 is likely that you're gonna want to postpone it, because it's just not gonna be, there's just not enough people making a decision. Total is 38, right?
But our bylaws do allow for a special election.
Okay, cool.
Yes, and I was going to, address that, and also to answer Cherie's question as well, because of what she mentioned, and the reason why we're proposing to doing that, not necessarily that we need to completely amend the bylaws to reflect that, but because evidently of what's happening now, we need president's councils to be able to have the chance to conduct their elections in order for CPAC to have its election. So that poses an issue. We're literally at the mercy of president's councils being able to complete and get their elections done in time that we have sufficient president's councils that have done it in order for us, or because we can't have CPAC's elections with no president's councils in place. So we're literally at the mercy of,
and president council is at the mercies of the PAs and PTAs. So they have to have theirs in order for them to even get the president council running for their district. So this is why we have to do what we do to assist and make sure that all PAs and PTAs can at least get their elections done, so that we would be able to, then they can go and do their president council's elections.
Right.
But until then, we at a standstill.
Right, but I don't foresee that we're gonna have the election on the 29th. It's very likely that the election, we're actually gonna have them in November at some point. But until we make an official decision, we need to plan as if we were having it on the 29th, even though I really don't think that's what is gonna happen at the end, because it just doesn't make sense to have them at that point. Also because we wanna be focusing on helping our PAs and PTAs and our president council run their elections rather than focusing on thinking about ours.
Marco, why can we not?
Hold on a second, wait a second, sorry, Cecilia. It was actually Richard that had raised his hand earlier, sorry.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. Yes, I agree with what Jimmy is saying. Right now, what District 10 is focusing right now is making sure that PTAs and PAs that are not in compliance, meaning that they have graduating parent leaders that are going into either high school or other schools, and that they're not functioning, that they don't have a PA president, we are definitely at this point just focusing as a priority to get those schools. And then we are staggering with the, in the second week of October, we're going to help those PTAs and PAs that have a very well structured governing body, so that we can help them in the technical issues that they may be presented to. I totally agree that it all falls into a puzzle. If we don't get the PAs in order, we cannot get our President's Council in order, and therefore CPAC cannot be in order. So I think that, Marco, you're absolutely right. I think that we should have a think or a brainstorming right now about to move our elections to the month of November, because there will be a lot of districts which are not going to be ready, especially with these delays of schools opening that we keep on hearing. And I'm crossing my fingers that October 1st will be the date that, the blended hybrid learning starts. Nonetheless, if it doesn't, it keeps on delaying our process, and PTAs and PAs, they're still having issues with Zoom accounts and with the whole 9 yards. So that's something to consider. And we need to prepare, and we should have some of flexibility, as the Chancellor has asked the parents. In his last letter, he did mention, that things happen and we should be flexible and we should be understanding of the situation. Well, I think we need some flexibility in this case, because we cannot elect CPAC if we don't have 1-2, which is PAs, PTAs, and President's Councils elected. Thank you.
Yeah. So it looks like, in general, it looks like we are all on the same page on that. But I think we're going to make a official decision on the first October meeting, like whether it was the 14th or what day was it? On the 15th, we're going to actually make an official decision on that. Cecilia, go ahead.
I was just wondering why we can't make it now, and if yes, can we set a date? Like, I don't think that there is anything that says when President Council elections should happen in the guidelines. Only for PAs and PTAs, right? October 31st, everyone has to have their elections. But it doesn't say the President Council should have their elections by then, correct?
But technically, yes. I believe it does, actually. The waiver.
Oh, really?
The waiver included President's Councils.
But it's only to October 31st. Otherwise, will be September 30th.
Yes.
Right. Like,
that doesn't mean, so let's be clear. That doesn't mean that comes October 15th, and we see that 3 President Council were able to run their election, for example, right? And we don't foresee that the rest, many more, will be able to have it before October 31st. We could make a request for an additional waiver to be issued, right? And allow President Council to hold their election till, for example, November 15th. I'm making the date up. I haven't even looked what's on the calendar, but we could make that request, and I don't see why it will be denied to have a waiver enacted to be able to do that.
Don't you think we should do that sooner rather than later?
Well, I think it's good to work with a deadline, even because otherwise, if you start, typically what happens that you always do it at the last minute. So if we already change it, then we already put it ourselves in trouble. I think we need to know that we're gonna do everything possible to have all President Council have their elections as soon as possible, but clearly not in an unreasonable way. And we know that we need to focus on PA and PTAs right now and supporting PAs and PTAs to have their elections before we even think about having President Council elections. So I just say, let's just focus on that. It doesn't take a long time to issue a waiver for it. And, but I mean, yeah, it seems we're better off just focusing on what we need to do, help PAs and PTAs run their elections, have as many meetings as possible to support. We know that also FACE is going to have many meetings to give that kind of support. we can also practically join PA and PTA meetings as president, council presidents, or reps, and help them actually run their elections if needed. Of course, sometimes the district might have too many schools. You might not be able to, to do it for every school. I know your letter was like saying you didn't want to volunteer, but yeah, go ahead, Marie.
Yes. So just for a point of clarity, and I think this would also help not just our voting members, but also the PAs and the PTAs at large, who are also on this live stream call. The waiver itself, because there had been some confusion that it only applies to the PAs and the PTAs, directly into the guidance that is titled Functioning in a Virtual Environment, and it says guidance for PA, PTA / President's Council. Directly on page 5, it strictly does address PA, PTA, and it also adds President's Council as extended with the waiver of October 31st. There seemed to have been some confusion that automatically at this point that President's Councils have ceased to function, that they're not included as part of the waiver. That is not the case. Directly into that guidance, please look up page 5. It covers PA, PTA, and President's Council until October 31st. Just wanted to make that clear so that, you know, all President's Councils can move forward in the right direction to getting their elections done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Cool. So are we all on the same page on this? Are we cool with, we're gonna make a decision on the 15th, and we're gonna set effectively the election date will be set on the 5th, on October 15th. In that occasion, we're also gonna be hopefully discussing and approving the modification to our bylaws that also might guide on how exactly to do this process.
So Marco, am I understanding this correctly, that we're actually thinking of holding the CPAC election on the 15th?
No,
Oh, okay.
absolutely
Just
not.
wanna make sure. Thanks, sorry.
On the 15th, we are going to agree on the date that we actually gonna hold the election, which is, I foresee is gonna be November, and probably not November 1st, likely towards the end of November, but hopefully in November, because otherwise we'll have to move it also to December, which will be a little too much, I think. But we'll move it to whatever date makes sense for everybody, and everybody feels that everybody got a fair chance to run the President Council election on time to be able to then run for a CPAC position. So yeah, so the schedule is like this. From now till the 15th, we're gonna hold a number of meetings to support PA and PTAs in understanding the virtual election guidance, in maybe making mock elections so that people can follow up and make an experience of how the election is actually ran, and all that. Then on the 15th, we're gonna have a CPAC meeting. At that meeting, one of the things that we're gonna do is to approve changes in our bylaws, and the other thing that we're gonna do is to vote on, or maybe we don't even need to vote. I don't know if vote is required, but anyway, we're gonna agree on what date we're gonna run the election, which is gonna be at some point in November. Then on the 29th, I think we're still gonna have a CPAC meeting. That's gonna be the official calendar meeting for October, but it's not likely to be
okay.
election.
Also too, it needs to be noted that CPAC is not subject to the open law meetings. So that's important. That's why sometimes we just have our meetings with the voting members. We're not subject to the open law meetings.
Open meeting laws, yes.
Yes.
I see Cecilia and Rashida having raised their hands.
Yeah, I cannot make it on the 15th. So how do I catch up? Like, what would be the best way? Can you send me the recording, or should I just email you to?
So the recording you can always, so since the moment that we start streaming the video, the recording is on YouTube all the time. Like also from the moment that we start sharing, the recording stays there. The link remains the same and it stays there.
Thank you. Yeah, I may come, but late, like after 11. So.
Okay, so just make sure to let people know at least what's your sense of like date for the election, just so that we have a sense, even though you're not going to be there. No, I don't think it's going to need to be a vote, but we probably are just going to discuss it and figure out what day works best for everybody or for the majority.
Okay, and another thing that's important too, if the PAs and PTAs know when their elections is to really let their president council know. So this way here, they can get the assistance that they need. And also at the same time, the FLCs or whatever it is, parent court, not the parent coordinator, but the FLCs will be able to help you or guide you if you have any question. So it's important to let your president council know when you're having your PA or PTA elections, so you can get the assistance if you need any.
That's right. And Rashida, you had your hand raised, I think, but now you lower it. Is because you don't need to ask a question or need to say anything anymore? If you're talking, I cannot hear you. No, you're good? Okay.
Who, me? Rashida?
Yeah. I thought you had to raise your hand. Maybe
I did. I got kicked out and I just joined and you just let me right back in. Thank you.
I didn't do anything.
Someone just let me back in. Trust me, I was kicked out. I completely got locked out. I needed to ask just a couple of CPAC business questions. Wanted to ask is this the right time? Is that okay?
Sure.
Can we get a one-pager with all of the districts listed and the reps? Like, where does that exist? Because I almost know everyone, but I don't. So that's one request.
That is the living document because sometimes changes.
Okay.
Right? But I can actually put it on a share drive so that it's available. And it's public information in reality because so it's not like private because when you become a rep. No, because when you become a president council representative, your information needs to be available to other parents to know that how to reach you and things like that.
Okay. Also wanted to ask if we could try to go back to some sort of submitting the questions as CPAC members in advance as we move forward with the school year. I know how difficult it is to manage all of that with all of us doing a million things, but just wanted to throw that out there again.
Yeah, it was actually, I think it was a great experience when we organized it. First, there were 1 billion questions at the time, right? Now the number of questions possibly has reduced, but yeah, I'm totally open to do that. And if everybody else is interested, we can do that before the next meeting to have the meeting that we have Chancellor, I guess. No meeting in which
really with the Chancellor
organizing other thing. Yeah.
Lastly, wondering if we can reach out to FACE to try, now this is a big task, to follow up with districts, to work with the President's Council to figure out what schools like never even had a PTA meeting. I don't know, does that make sense? Like, what do y'all think? I feel like
that was.
So I would like actually to, so
that they have already pushed everything out and put it on the FLCs to make sure that they reach out to help. So every FLC knows every school that's there. So they should know whether or not if they have a PA or PTA, and they need to be reaching out to make sure that they become up functioning. So
right.
They already given that job to the FLCs.
But actually, I think it would be great if every president council had a clear picture of what's the situation in their district.
Like Shirley stated, all FLCs should know this information. They're constantly saying they're meeting with the FLCs and the FSCs and the parent coordinators and giving them this information. Then they really should know. So if you know your FLC, right, you can ask them. So they supposed to notice if they've been having these meetings with DOE and FACE, because they get this information before we do. So they should have the answers that you're asking. So you can go to your face. You can go to Nancy, and Nancy should be able to tell you if she has this information or not, because you know your FLC.
Cool.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, Michael. I don't have an issue with me with D4, but I'm hearing things about other districts. And then also, once we as President's Council get that list, we can follow up with our parents, because I know one thing for sure. Nancy said like all of our schools in D4 were having the SLT meetings, right? When we closed down in March, everyone was like, yeah, they're having the SLT meetings. They're having the SLT meetings. So according to Nancy, in her report, we were good, which she's just getting the report from the schools. But then when you talk to the parents, they're like, no, what SLT? Like they don't know anything about it, right? So that's just something that we have to do on our end, I guess, as parent leaders, to ensure that the parents are truly involved, because the schools could say that they're still having it. PAs and PTAs is a little different, but thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you. If there is not anything else, I think we can close this meeting right here. And looks like there isn't. Okay, have a good day, everybody. I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
all.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Marco. Thanks.
Be well and keep safe, everyone.
Bye-bye.